Chapter 920. The white light was not the only treasure used to set up the jade water magnetic array. However, for Wang Lin, Shi Tianhao, Li Yuanfang and the others, this was the only thing they were interested in. Without this treasure, the jade water magnetic array would naturally collapse. Tunten was the first to rush up Cold Wind Mountain. Shi Tianhao and the others followed indifferently. However, before they could reach the mountain, Tunten's cheers came to an abrupt halt. However, it did not feel like it had suddenly been attacked. Instead, it seemed like it had lost its voice due to extreme shock. Wang Lin, Li Yuanfang, Yang Qing and the others were still pondering the white light when they turned their attention back. What's going on? Shi Tianhao raised his brows. What the hell is this idiot doing? It can't be that the Blackwater mysterious underworld being will become a female after his body is reconstructed, right? Luo Qinggu curiously looked at Cold Wind Mountain. She was about to speak when she suddenly realized that her disciple, Han Yang, was doing the same thing as her. She could not help but knock on Han Yang's head. After Han Yang hugged his head and shrank back, she continued to look at Cold Wind Mountain and said, "In any case, let's go and take a look first." The group landed on Cold Wind Mountain together while Wang Lin sat cross-legged silently in the sky above the mountain peak. Breaking the Jade Water Magnetic Array would definitely alarm the hidden turtle race in the Jade Pool Mountain Range. Soon, the mysterious underworld race in the Great Mysterious Underworld Swamp would also be alerted. Wang Lin was not interested in Tunten's matter, so he simply stayed outside to oversee things for Shi Tianhao and the others. Li Yuanfang and Chu Yang sat silently with him in the sky. Although he wanted to spend more time with Luo Qinggu, Chu Yang did not know what was going on. It seemed like Tunten's private matter, so he felt that it was best not to get involved. Otherwise, it would be rude. Li Yuanfang, on the other hand, continued to study the white light that he had just obtained. He saw that the white light was actually a square iron stone that had been polished to perfection. Just by sensing it from the outside, one would not be able to sense the powerful magnetic force within. However, if one were to send one's spiritual sense into it, one would be able to sense the violent power within. Wang Lin's spiritual sense also swept over it, muttering to himself, "It's a part of the essence of an origin magnetic steel or vein. It was cut off and polished into this form." Xianmen Tianzong's Xiantian realm had a vein of magnetic steel, so both Wang Lin and Li Yuanfang were familiar with it. However, when they mined the mine, they would only mine the origin magnetic steel. They would not touch the essence of the origin magnetic steel mine, which was not conducive to the mine's regeneration. Li Yuanfang said, "Based on this marrow alone, the mine's yield is huge and the quality is excellent. However, the marrow shows signs of decline. It's very strange." Wang Lin looked at the quartz-like marrow. "With this marrow we can find that vein. The opportunity that Master spoke of is most likely in that vein of magnetic steel. It might be difficult for others, but it won't be difficult for us." Li Yuanfang nodded. The origin magnetic steel mine contained a tremendous amount of magnetic force, making it extremely difficult to mine. If the mine was larger and the quality of the ore was better, the amount of magnetic force in the mine would be even more exaggerated. Compared to the magnetic force of the jade water magnetite array, it was like the difference between the light of a firefly and the brilliance of the sun and moon. With such powerful magnetic force, even Tao Integration Realm human experts or Astral Soul Unification Realm great demons would not be in danger if they ventured deep into the mine. However, if they wanted to find anything, they would not be able to. It was very difficult to extend one's consciousness into the origin magnetic steel mine. However, Wang Lin and the others were not afraid. From the origin magnetic steel mine of Xianmen Tianzong's family in the Xiantian realm, they had been lucky enough to obtain a rare treasure that only had a very low probability of being produced. With the marrow of the origin magnetic steel mine in hand, they could enter deep into the mine to search. The divine ability avatar Lin Feng had placed on Li Yuanfang did not appear, but it smiled when it saw this. He had to thank the person who had cut off the marrow, causing a flaw in the mine. Otherwise, he would not have been able to discover the profundities within even if he spread out his consciousness. If a person was right in front of the mine and specifically came for this mine, they would be able to discover it as well. However, if one were to pass by it carelessly, it would be very difficult for them to notice anything amiss. The magnetic force was too strong, and it was very irritating. The great sage also vaguely sensed something, but Lin Feng was one step ahead of him and covered it up first. Although the great sage felt that something was wrong, he did not say anything. After all, the most important thing for him was to capture and kill Golden Cicada. Wang Lin and Li Yuanfang pondered the origin magnetic steel marrow outside the mountain, while Shi Tianhao, Yang Qing, Luo Qinggu, and the others landed on Cold Wind Mountain together and walked to a cave abode. A chill spread from the cave abode, causing Han Yang, Goldie, and the others to frown slightly. They needed to circulate their dermic power to resist it. Not long after they entered the cave abode, they saw a small figure standing there in a daze. Who else could it be but Tunten? The expressions of Shi Tianhao and the others immediately turned strange when they saw the figure in front of Tunten. Several female mysterious underworld beasts had appeared in front of them as if they were facing a great enemy. They were all at the Demon Commander stage, but they were not young. If not for the black water mysterious underworld being's unique taste, these female mysterious underworld beasts would have looked more like old maids waiting on someone. At the moment, they were protecting a young mysterious underworld being in the center. The young mysterious underworld beast was extremely small and looked like a small beast. Its size was not much different from a human baby. The young mysterious underworld beast blinked its large black eyes as it curiously looked at Tunten and asked in a childish voice, "Why are you looking for my daddy?" At this moment, the air seemed to freeze. The already bewildered Tunten was completely petrified as it stared at the young mysterious underworld beast. For a moment, it felt as if a row of crows were flying over its head, laughing at its idiocy. A long while later, Tunten said in a hoarse voice, "You said your daddy is the mysterious underworld great sage, right?" The young mysterious underworld beast blinked. "No, the mysterious underworld great sage is my grandfather and my daddy is the black water mysterious underworld beast. However, my daddy will definitely become the new mysterious underworld great sage in the future." Shi Tianhao stealthily circled to Tunten's side and stuck his head out to look at Tunten. He saw that Tunten's eyes were extremely empty and unfocused. The female mysterious underworld beasts were afraid that Tunten would suddenly attack them and hurriedly protected the young mysterious underworld beast. However, the young mysterious underworld beast did not shy away from strangers. For some reason, it seemed to feel a sense of familiarity when it looked at Tunten and asked in a childish voice, "Big sister, who are you? Why are you looking for my daddy?" Tunten's body trembled when it heard this form of address. When it returned to its senses, it became even more confused. Yang Qing, Tan Yunqing, and Zhuge Wanxiu were slightly better off, but Shi Tianhao, Luo Qinggu, Han Yang, and Huang Zhenting all covered their mouths and laughed silently. If not for the fact that the scene before them was too awkward, they would have already burst into laughter. Tunten was currently in human form and still looked like a little girl. However, it had already grown up a little compared to when Lin Feng and his disciple had first seen it. Tunten had also frequently cultivated in the time-accelerated space over the past few years. However, it still looked very young. If the young mysterious underworld beast before them was in human form, it would most likely look like a little doll that was less than a year old. However, calling her big sister was appropriate. However, Tunten clearly did not think so. It was a long time before it returned to its senses and snapped, "What, big sister? You have to call me." After being stuck for a moment, Tunten did not answer. It glared at the female mysterious underworld beasts with its large eyes and asked aggressively, "Where is the black water mysterious underworld beast?" A mysterious underworld beast glanced at Tunten in fear. "Young master has gone out, but he will be back very soon. Don't act recklessly." Before she could finish, Tunten cut her off. "Immediately find the black water mysterious underworld beast and bring him back to see me." Tunten unleashed its demonic power, and the female mysterious underworld demon generals were immediately thrown out. They wanted to resist, but they were powerless. However, they were horrified to find that the young mysterious underworld beast had been left behind by Tunten. The little fellow stared blankly at this scene, unable to react. The female mysterious underworld demon generals wanted to pounce over, but Tunton glared at them. "Don't force me to swallow all of you. Young Master is the clan master's granddaughter. The mysterious underworld race will not let this matter rest if you hurt her." A mysterious underworld demon general roared. Tunton snorted. "If you say any more nonsense, I won't wait any longer. I will swallow all of you and this little one together." The mysterious underworld beasts could only give up helplessly and hurriedly leave the cold Wind Mountain range to relay the news. Some contacted the black water mysterious underworld beast, while others rushed to the great mysterious underworld swamp to relay the news. Wang Lin and Li Yuanfang did not stop them and allowed them to leave. Tunton angrily walked over to the young mysterious underworld beast and sat down. One big and one small Lolita sat opposite each other, glaring at each other. Lin Feng's mystic ability avatar, which he had placed on Luo Qingwu, found this scene rather funny. Although the young mysterious underworld beast did not take human form, it still looked rather cute. It was not as ferocious and tyrannical as an adult demonic beast. Its soft fur was soft and supple, and its large, vacant eyes were wide open. Instead, it gave off an adorable feeling. Is this what the legends mean? As long as they are young, most animals can be very soft and adorable? Lin Feng shook his head and laughed inwardly. Tunton looked at the young mysterious underworld beast in front of it. After its initial shock, it became even more depressed. She had wholeheartedly looked forward to the day she could overpower the Blackwater mysterious underworld beast. Now, it seemed that there was hope for her dream to come true. Who knew that the reality would be so harsh? The young mysterious underworld beast was already running all over the place and could barely learn how to play soy sauce. How could Tunton not be depressed? No matter how she looked at the young mysterious underworld beast, she found it to be an eyesore. It's a pure-blooded mysterious underworld beast. This means that the black water mysterious underworld beast also gave birth to this little fellow. Tunton was extremely depressed. When it realized that the young mysterious underworld beast was staring at it, it said fiercely, "What are you looking at? I will eat you if you keep looking." The young mysterious underworld beast blinked in confusion. However, it still nodded. Oh! This time, it no longer looked at Tunton. However, under Tunton's incredulous gaze, it clumsily moved over and leaned on Tunton's body before closing its eyes and dozing off. The young mysterious underworld beast commander felt an indescribable sense of intimacy from Tunton, which made the other mysterious underworld demon commanders extremely fearful. This feeling was both familiar and foreign to her. It was somewhat similar to the feeling she had when facing her father, the black water mysterious underworld beast. "Ooh, you little bastard. Do you believe that I will really eat you?" Tunton stammered. Then, it realized that the little fellow's breathing had gradually become heavier and calmer. It had actually fallen asleep while leaning on Tunton's body. What is going on? Tunton suddenly had the urge to look at the sky and cry. Chapter 9:21. Tunton was dumbfounded as it watched little Shenming snuggle up to her and sleep soundly. Even Shi Tianhao and the others were dumbfounded when they saw this. The development of the situation was completely out of their expectations. It was a long while later before Tunton finally returned to its senses. It looked at little Shenming, so angry that its lips trembled and it stuttered, You little one, get up, do you hear me? If you don't get up, I will really swallow you. I'm not scaring you. I'm very serious. I will really eat you. I don't have any friendship with the mysterious underworld race. To be honest, I still have to settle the score with your father, Black Water Mysterious Underworld. Since he's not around, you will be the first to receive the retribution. I haven't eaten a mysterious underworld yet, so I will start with a little girl like you. I say, are you even listening to me? Don't pretend to be asleep. Really asleep? Why are you sleeping so soundly? You little lazy thing. Even I wasn't able to sleep as much as you when I was your age. Little Shenming subconsciously adjusted his position in Tunton's arms to sleep more comfortably. Tunton didn't know whether to laugh or cry. It was even a little helpless. The others also returned to their senses at this moment. Shi Tianhao burst into laughter and pointed at Tunton. I've already said that you're unreliable. He even has a child. In the black water mysterious Ming's eyes, you're just an enemy, right? Shut up. Tunton snapped. After laughing, Shi Tianhao looked at Tunton in a seemingly serious manner. I already said long ago that in black water mysterious underworld's eyes, you were deliberately trying to provoke him with your cheap mouth back then. He didn't really think that you wanted to, do that with him. After all, back then, Shi Tianhao sized up Tunton and pursed his lips. Including now, you really don't seem like someone who can do that. Shi Tianhao rolled his eyes. Let's not talk about race and feelings first. Based on the age of the demon race, Blackwater Mysterious Ming is the one who is abnormal for liking you. Tunton waved its little fist at Shi Tianhao and shouted, Don't look down on me. I will definitely mate with the Blackwater Mysterious Underworld. Cough 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 cough. Although they had heard it before, Xianmen Tianzong and the others still nearly choked on their own saliva every time they heard Tunton's majestic declaration. Han Yang turned around, his shoulders shaking uncontrollably. Goldie pursed his lips. Is this kind of thing worth being so concerned about? Aunt Tunton is too stubborn. Zhuge Wanqiu didn't know whether to laugh or cry when she heard this. She didn't know how to respond. The corners of Tan Yunqing's mouth twitched slightly. Even he, who was usually calm and composed, felt speechless at that moment. Luo Qingwu curiously looked at the little Xianming, who was snuggling up to Tunton. But why is this little fellow so close to you? Logically speaking, even if she doesn't know that her father once fought with you, you should be a stranger to her. I have never heard of a mysterious underworld race being close to the Taotai race. Tunton glared at Luo Qingwu and snorted. How would I know? Who am I supposed to ask if you ask me? Who knows why this little bastard is like this? I wouldn't be so annoyed if I knew. Han Yang turned around and chuckled. Perhaps Aunt Tunton knows his mother and has some sort of relationship with her. Tunton's eyes widened. I don't know any mysterious underworld beasts apart from the Blackwater Mysterious Ming, let alone a female mysterious underworld beast. I have some sort of relationship with her? If that female mysterious underworld beast dares to appear in front of me now, I will immediately swallow her. Yang Qing pondered for a moment before she said, If it isn't related to the mother and originated from the Blackwater Mysterious Ming, I'm afraid that the problem lies in the great battle back then. Besides that tragic battle, you and the Blackwater Mysterious Ming didn't seem to have any substantial contact, right? Tunton looked depressed. At this moment, Shi Tianhao chuckled and said, Idiot, do you also feel a sense of familiarity when you look at this little fellow? How is that possible? Tunton immediately bristled and almost jumped up. It only realized that a little creature was snuggling in its arms when it moved. It could not help but grimace and look even more depressed. Shi Tianhao sneakily moved in front of her and said, Then why didn't you swallow her? Why are you hugging her like a wet nurse? Tunton furrowed its brows and a greedy and ferocious look appeared on its face. Only now did it feel like it wasn't a little lowly from the human race but a genuine Taotai. However, when it lowered its head to look at the little Xianming sleeping in its arms as though no one was around, it immediately felt like a heroic hero would be short of breath. After using its teeth to circle the little fellow's body a few times, Tunton shut its mouth and snorted. She's too small. Not even enough to fill the gaps between my teeth. Swallowing her won't quench my hunger. Instead, it will make me even hungrier. Shi Tianhao, Luo Qingwu and the others could not help but laugh when they saw this. Tunton's eyes widened. What are you guys laughing at? Everyone looked up at the sky and laughed. Don't laugh, don't laugh. They turned around in unison, but their shoulders were still twitching, causing Tunton to grit its teeth. Humph! Tunton scrunched its nose in dissatisfaction. It lowered its head to look at the little Xianming and could not help but feel even more depressed. Humph! When your mother comes, we will eat her first and recover our strength. Then we will deal with the Blackwater Mysterious Ming. There was no need to mention how depressed Tunten was in the cold wind mountain and how Shi Tianhao was laughing so hard that he fell to the ground. Outside the cold wind mountain, Wang Lin, Li Yuanfeng, and Chu Yang sat silently in the void. After a long time, Wang Lin's expression suddenly changed slightly. He raised his head and looked towards the western sky, in the direction of the great mysterious underworld swamp. A black water droplet suddenly appeared in the boundless void. Silently floating in the sky, it was sparkling, translucent, and clear. However, the most eye-catching thing about it was its extreme cold. The ice crystal-like black water droplet gradually expanded like a door that led to an ancient, dark ice age. A huge figure slowly walked out of the door. It was an adult mysterious underworld beast. The moment this mysterious underworld beast appeared, the surrounding temperature plummeted and the world abruptly fell silent. It was as if one was in a world without sound. At the same time, the originally bright and beautiful world darkened. However, it was not because of the dark clouds that covered the sky. There were no clouds in the sky, and sunlight still shone on the land. However, it seemed much dimmer. The concept of the power of extreme cold, while freezing tangible life forms and objects, actually wanted to freeze sound, light, and even time and space, which didn't have tangible forms at the same time. In the vast infinite wasteland, the only mysterious underworld beast with such power was undoubtedly the current mysterious underworld Great Sage. In the past, in the human race world of the Divine Land, the Yu family cultivated the mysterious underworld art and could also use the mysterious underworld true water. However, no one could do it. Only the strongest person in the family, mysterious underworld Dao Venerate Yu Xintao, who lived in the family's ancestral land and presided over the array formation, could have such power. If the mysterious underworld Great Sage before him revealed his true form, Yu Xintao would have to activate the family treasure, the mysterious underworld treasure tome, while presiding over the array formation in the ancestral land. Only then would he be able to fight. However, for Wang Lin, the mysterious underworld Great Sage that had left the mysterious underworld swamp wasn't enough. Although he had just attained the Essence Soul realm not long ago, Wang Lin dared to face a great demon at the Astral Soul Fusion realm, let alone a mysterious underworld Great Sage at the primordial True Spirit realm. Silently sitting in a lotus position in the sky above the cold wind mountain, Wang Lin's body didn't move. The surging deathly stillness of the qi of destruction filled the air, eroding the surrounding space and turning it into the real netherworld realm. Not to mention the cold wind mountain, the entire Jade Pool Mountains seemed to be in the netherworld realm. The vast lake that was attached to the entire mountain range seemed to have turned into the netherworld river. The originally quiet lake began to stir silently and turned into an endless Wangchuan river. It floated in the air and surrounded the mysterious underworld Great Sage, Wang Lin, and the others. A pitch-black netherworld road appeared in front of the mysterious underworld Great Sage. However, as soon as this road appeared, the mysterious underworld Great Sage didn't dare to act rashly. He was blocked and couldn't move forward. When Wang Lin activated the netherworld realm destruction realm, the mysterious underworld Great Sage immediately revealed his true form. However, it wasn't to attack, but to protect himself. He looked coldly at Wang Lin and the cold wind mountain below. Wang Lin's expression was calm and indifferent. He didn't say anything. Li Yuanfeng cupped his hands towards the mysterious underworld Great Sage. "We came here because a friend wants to meet your son. We don't have any other intentions. I hope the mysterious underworld Great Sage won't blame us for being impolite." The mysterious underworld Great Sage was sucked into Wang Lin's netherworld realm destruction realm and couldn't escape. He could only accompany Wang Lin and the others and wait bitterly. In the cold wind mountain, Tunten was getting more and more impatient. How can this mysterious underworld black water be a father? Does he have to learn from the Tibetan turtle race and hide his head? Little Xianming was in a deep sleep, but he woke up quickly. He was lying in Tunten's arms with sleepy eyes. When he woke up, he asked, "Big sister, is Daddy back?" Tunten glared at him. "Don't call me big sister. Call me Auntie. Do you understand?" Little Xianming blinked his eyes and replied in a childish voice, "I understand, Auntie." Tunton nodded its little head in satisfaction. Then little Xianming said, "Auntie, Lu Ling is hungry. Your wet nurses have all run away. Where am I going to find food for you now?" Tunton said in a distressed tone. However, he immediately realized that something was wrong and said fiercely to little Xianming, "No, you are now my hostage and captive. Do you understand what a hostage is? You are not allowed to make so many requests." Little Xianming answered, "Lu Ling is very obedient." After saying that, he stopped complaining about being hungry and even snuggled comfortably in Tunton's arms. Tunton suddenly had the urge to stare at the sky speechlessly. He looked helplessly at Shi Tianhao and said, "I don't have any food on me. Do you have anything edible with you?" At this moment, a voice rang out from outside the cold wind mountain. "Tao, you are pestering me again." Tunton heard this voice and immediately shouted, "Great, mysterious underworld Blackwater, you are finally here." Chapter 9:22. Outside the cold wind mountain, Wang Lin's Yellow Springs extermination mirror was still enveloping the area. Two smaller mysterious underworld beasts, one male and one female, had appeared beside the mysterious underworld great sage. The male mysterious underworld beast looked at the mysterious underworld great sage and said, "Father, your son will go and meet that Tao Tai again." The mysterious underworld great sage nodded with a sullen expression and didn't say anything. The other female mysterious underworld beast also wanted to follow, but the male mysterious underworld beast said, "The Tao Tai is with Xianmen Tianzong of the Divine Land. Besides this person, Xianmen Tianzong and the others are also here. It won't be of much use if so many people go together. The Tao Tai is coming for me, so it's better for me to go alone. You stay here. Don't worry, I will bring my daughter back safely." The female mysterious underworld beast said, "Be careful and be careful of Lu Ling, don't let the Tao Tai hurt her." The male mysterious underworld beast was naturally the mysterious underworld great sage's son, Blackwater mysterious underworld great sage. He had fought a great battle with Tunton in the past and had nearly perished together. Later on, his father, the mysterious underworld great sage, had helped him reconstruct his physical body after much difficulty. The Blackwater mysterious Ming was infuriated when he heard that Tunton had taken the initiative to find him and had even kidnapped his precious daughter. It was as if he had met his enemy and his eyes reddened with anger. Even though Wang Lin was extremely powerful, he did not lose his fighting spirit. Blackwater mysterious underworld beast immediately landed on the cold wind mountain. He didn't speak when he passed by Wang Lin, Li Yuanfang, and Chu Yang. Wang Lin and the others also remained silent and didn't stop him from heading to the cold wind mountain. Blackwater mysterious underworld beast entered the cold wind mountain cave dwelling and saw Shi Tianhao and the others curiously looking at him. In the middle of the crowd was a scene that stunned him. His precious daughter was nestled in the arms of a human girl who wasn't even 10 years old and was munching on a spirit fruit. Luling Xianming immediately cheered when he saw Blackwater Xianming. He greeted his father excitedly. "Daddy, Daddy." For a moment, the Blackwater mysterious underworld being was unable to react to this strange scene. Shi Tianhao and the others were having a hard time holding back their laughter. Tunton, who was carrying little Xianming, had a depressed and embarrassed look on his face. He exchanged glances with Blackwater Xianming and felt as if a few crows were flying over his head. Blackwater Xianming's gaze shifted back and forth between his daughter and Tunton for a moment before he gradually returned to his senses. He first looked at Luling Xianming and said in a gentle voice, "Don't worry, Luling. Daddy will take you to Grandpa's house to play later." Tunton's brows immediately furrowed when he heard this. Before he could say anything, he heard little Xuanming's childish voice say, "This aunt is here to find Daddy. Will she come with you after you've finished your discussion?" The Blackwater mysterious Ming's and Tunton's expressions froze at the same time. They stared at little Xuanming's large black eyes and were somewhat speechless. Cough. The Blackwater mysterious Ming coughed dryly and looked Tunton in the eye. His expression was calm and solemn. "What exactly do you want? If you want to see who is better, I will accompany you at any time." His voice was deep. "If you want to fight, we will fight to the death." Tuntun's little face was unprecedentedly serious as it stared at the Blackwater mysterious Ming with bright and clear eyes. Shi Tianhao, Luo Qinggu and the others had never seen such a serious and solemn little Taotai before. It was obvious how serious Tuntun was from its expression. Blackwater mysterious Ming, I want you to be my spouse, Tuntun said, enunciating each word. The cave dwelling instantly fell silent. It was only for a moment, but it felt like an eternity. In an instant, Shi Tianhao nearly burst out laughing. Everyone else also covered their faces, as they couldn't bear to look at the Blackwater mysterious underworld. Yang Qing let out a long sigh and didn't say anything. Luo Qinggu covered her face with one hand and turned away. Her shoulders trembled as she gave Tuntun a thumbs up with her other hand. Han Yang, Huang Zhenting, Tan Yunqing, and Zhuge Wanqiu stood side by side, their movements synchronized. All of them lowered their heads and stared at their feet, as if they could see flowers blooming on their feet. The Blackwater mysterious Ming was stunned for a moment before anger came to his face. Taoi, how dare you tease me like this? Let's see who is better today. Even if we have to fight until only a remnant soul remains, we will fight to the death this time. Tuntun snorted. Do you think I'm afraid of you? You've spent most of these years rebuilding your physical body. You're also an initial demon king like me, but you're no match for me this time. However, Blackwater mysterious Ming, listen carefully. I want to mate with you, and I'm very serious. Even Shi Tianhao couldn't stand listening to Tuntun's solemn declaration. He waved his hand at the Blackwater mysterious Ming and said, I can assure you that although this matter is very unreliable and sounds very bizarre, this fool is serious. She's not trying to provoke you, but she really thinks so. There's no need for me to lie to you. The Blackwater mysterious Ming glanced at Shi Tianhao. Although the human in front of him didn't deliberately release any power, the Blackwater mysterious Ming could faintly feel tremendous pressure from him. The pressure was even more terrifying than his father, the mysterious underworld great saint, and not the slightest bit inferior to Wang Lin's. There was indeed no need to lie to such a person, but the Blackwater mysterious Ming still felt it was extremely ridiculous. There wasn't much anger in his gaze when he looked at Tuntun, but disbelief and laughter. Back then, he and the Blackwater mysterious Ming had fought for such a reason and both sides had suffered. The Blackwater mysterious Ming felt like his head was in a knot as he looked at Tuntun. After a long while, he shook his head and said, I'll believe what you said for now, but there's no possibility between us. Let's not talk about race and feelings for now. How old are you? According to the lifespan of the Taotai race, you're still a little baby. As he spoke, the Blackwater mysterious Ming's appearance gradually changed. Besides little Xianming, he was the only other person in the cave dwelling in his demon form. He had also transformed into his human form. Even Shi Tianhao, Yang Qing, Luo Qinggu and the others cheered inwardly when they saw the Blackwater mysterious Ming transform into a human. A tall, handsome young man in black appeared in the cave dwelling. His eyes glowed brightly and his facial features looked as if they had been carved by a knife. He was extremely handsome and did not look feminine at all. Instead, he was full of masculine beauty and did not make people feel that he was boorish. If one had to find fault with him, it would be that his expression was rather cold and stern, but it also added a unique charm. According to the general aesthetic standards of the human race, he was an extremely handsome man. When a demon transformed into a human, if they did not deliberately change their appearance, then the appearance of a human would basically be the same as that of a demon according to the aesthetic perception of the human race. In other words, the Blackwater mysterious Ming's human form was extraordinarily handsome in the eyes of the human race. In the eyes of the demon race, his original appearance was of the same level. Although the demon race was also divided into different races, and there were times when there would inevitably be differences in the aesthetic standards of the various races in the demon world. For example, the men and women of the Sky Fox race were publicly recognized as having the highest average standards in the vast Tianhuang continent. Tuntun, on the other hand, was an adorable little loli in her human form. Although she looked strange and terrifying in the eyes of the human race when she transformed into her Taotai form, She was still a cute little loli in the eyes of many demons. This was the case for the Blackwater mysterious Ming, but it was impossible for him to have any special thoughts about Tunten. The Blackwater mysterious Ming looked at Tunten, pointed at her, and then pointed at himself. Look at you. You did not deliberately change your appearance. You and I are in human form now, so you can see the difference. In terms of the lifespan of the same race, I am almost 3 times older than you. Tunten snorted. Wait 1,000 years. Will you still be 3 times older than me? I have to grow up eventually. Shi Tianhao pursed his lips and said coldly, you also know that you have to grow up, but you still wanted to do that with him back then. Tunten waved its fist at him and bared its teeth. The Blackwater mysterious Ming said in amusement, that's right. Even if you can't form an indestructible demon soul, you and I have formed a demon nascent, so our lifespans will naturally be extremely long. However, the question is, why should I wait 1,000 years for you? His expression gradually turned cold. Do I have to wait for you just because you want me to? Who do you think you are? If you are the person I set my mind on, I can wait for a long time. But why should I wait 1,000 years for a stranger? Tunten's eyes widened in anger. What stranger? Back then, Hu Fun and I tried to snatch you away. Why did you pretend not to know? The Blackwater mysterious Ming was also enraged. You still dare to say that? Not only did you and Hu Fun mess around, but you also caused a huge commotion in the vast Tianhuang mainland. The other demon races even thought that I had taken a fancy to a Taotai that had yet to reach adulthood. In fact, I have only met you twice and spoken less than 5 sentences to you. All these years, I have been confused. I can't figure out how I have offended you and why you keep finding trouble with me. Shi Tianhao covered his face. He felt that they had come to the Xianming Swamp and the Cold Wind Mountain to be near the Xianming Swamp and to be humiliated. It was no wonder that the Blackwater mysterious Ming was so angry. Back then, Tunten had fought Tunten to the death and they had almost perished together. When this matter spread, it was impossible for him to explain, especially when Tunten had repeatedly gone to the Fox clan's ancestral land, Qingqiu Mountain, to settle scores with Hu Fun. He had unilaterally turned the rumors into irrefutable evidence. In fact, let alone Tunten, the Blackwater mysterious Ming and Hu Fun didn't have any special relationship. Tunten had misunderstood back then, and Hu Fun was angry that it had found trouble with her. Therefore, not only did she not explain, but she also deliberately angered Tunten and further misled the little Ta. Tunten stared at the Blackwater mysterious Ming with wide eyes, its expression somewhat blank. A long while later, Tunten's clear black and white eyes were covered in a layer of mist. In the end, he burst into tears. Seeing the weeping little Taotai, Luo Qinggu and Zhuge Wanqiu hurriedly went forward to console her, while Shi Tianhao, Yang Qing and the others looked awkwardly at the Blackwater mysterious Ming. The Blackwater mysterious Ming's face was filled with helplessness. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he looked at the childlike Tunten. The little Xianming, who was still in Tunten's arms, raised his head and looked strangely at Tunten. He touched Tunten's cheek and said, "Auntie, don't cry." Tunten looked at the little Xianming and kissed her on the cheek before crying even louder. The Blackwater mysterious Ming, Shi Tianhao and the others sighed at the sky. They suddenly had the urge to look at the sky at a 45-degree angle and cry against the wind. Chapter 9:23. A leopard could change its spots, but a person's character could not be changed. No matter how much Tunten cried, it could not change its dumb nature. She quickly stopped sobbing and glared at the Blackwater mysterious underworld. "I don't care what happened in the past. I want you to be my spouse now." Everyone burst out laughing. They were amused by the sight of Tunten crying like a kitten but not forgetting its original intentions. Tunten said loudly, "If you don't agree, I will snatch you back to the mountain." The Blackwater mysterious underworld sneered. "Go ahead and try." However, the Blackwater mysterious underworld's gaze still landed on his precious daughter, as he was afraid that Tunten would hurt her. Little Xianming blinked and looked curiously at Tunten and her father. She tugged at Tunten's sleeve and shook it. "Auntie." Tunten glared at the Blackwater mysterious underworld and snorted. It lowered its head to look at little Xianming in its arms and gently put her down. Luling, right? Stay here obediently. I will come and play with you after I finish mating with your father. Shi Tianhao and the others nearly choked when they heard this. Shi Tianhao and Luo Qingwu hurriedly stopped Tunten. Yang Qing walked in front of the Blackwater mysterious underworld race and sighed. My sect has no enmity with the mysterious underworld beast race. You people rarely enter the divine land and rarely come into contact with the human race. Therefore, my sect has no intention of fighting with you. I just want to send her to fulfill a wish. The Blackwater mysterious underworld race's face darkened as he said slowly, although the mysterious underworld race lives in a secluded corner, your sect's reputation resounds like thunder. The Taotai, who he didn't get along with, was in this human sect. It would be difficult for his reputation not to resound like thunder. Just like what Shi Tianhao had said, no matter if the demon race was dealing with different races or dealing with the human race, no matter what the reason was, they had to show off their muscles first. Whoever had the bigger fist had the loudest voice. This style was the same even for the cold, quiet, and less violent mysterious underworld race. Wang Lin had transformed thousands of miles of the world into the Yellow Springs realm and suppressed the mysterious underworld great sage. This had already demonstrated Xianmen Tianzong's strength, so the black water mysterious underworld being naturally wouldn't humiliate himself. Of course, if Shi Tianhao and the others wanted to help Tunten, forcibly do that to him, Blackwater Xianming would rather die than comply and would resist to the death. However, when the Blackwater mysterious Ming thought about it in his head, he felt that it was ridiculous. He felt a little sad. The Blackwater mysterious Ming didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he thought of this. He even felt that he had never smiled more bitterly in his entire life than today. He looked at Yang Qing and said with a sigh, that little Tao hasn't reached the age of estrus yet. On the other side, Shi Tianhao suddenly turned his head with a pained expression. Yang Qing looked at Shi Tianhao strangely. What's wrong? His understanding of the demon race was still very superficial after all. The corners of Shi Tianhao's mouth twitched. That means that this glutton can't take the initiative to do that to people. She doesn't have the need to find a mate at all. Although they knew that Tunten was considered very young in the Taotai race, Shi Tianhao and the others didn't know when a Taotai could mate. Many demon races were completely different from the human race in this aspect and couldn't be treated by the same standards. Therefore, Shi Tianhao and the others hadn't thought much about this. Now that they heard the black water mysterious Ming's explanation, they realized that Tunten was actually not old enough. Even though Yang Qing's temperament was much calmer than before, her eyes widened slightly. Shi Tianhao said with a pained expression, in other words, it's possible for other adult demons to forcefully do that to her, but for her to forcefully do that to other demons, this has nothing to do with biology at all. It's purely, she's simply out of her mind. Lin Feng, who had silently witnessed everything, helped Shi Tianhao finish the second half of the sentence in his heart. Then he sighed inwardly. Therefore, mental health education needs to be properly arranged, especially for families that raise girls. Shi Tianhao turned to look at Tunten and shouted, "You bastard, do you know what mating is?" Tunten snorted. Of course I know. I saw it when father and mother were mating. Yang Qing also smiled bitterly. But you're not old enough. It's more harmful than beneficial. Tunten stared at the black water mysterious Ming. You can also store it first. Everyone rolled their eyes when they heard this. This was really the usual way of thinking of the Taotai race. The black water mysterious Ming's expression turned even colder as he stared at Tunten in an unfriendly manner. Tunten did not back down and stared back at him with an even more aggressive gaze. However, Tunten's feet suddenly left the ground. Shi Tianhao had grabbed it and lifted it off the ground. Shi Tianhao, what are you doing? Tunten flailed its limbs and bared its fangs and claws. However, as a demon king, she was like a child in Shi Tianhao's hands. She could not resist at all. Her demonic power was completely suppressed, and she could only struggle like a real child. Shi Tianhao had a pained expression on his face. The other party even has a child. Don't think about it. Tunton kept struggling. It's common to fight for a mate in the vast land of infinite wasteland. I'm not the only one doing this. The Blackwater mysterious Ming smiled bitterly. Tunton was right. However, he would not be happy if he became the one being fought over. Shi Tianhao pursed his lips. If you were a little more reliable, I would have let you kidnap her and bring her back to the mountain. He was speaking from the bottom of his heart. Even though he was an adult now, he was still the devil incarnate who was not afraid of stirring up trouble. However, Tunton's continuous blunders made Shi Tianhao speechless. He nodded at the Blackwater mysterious Ming and walked out of the cave abode with Tunton. Luo Qingwu looked at the stunned Blackwater mysterious Ming and bowed. We have really troubled you this time. Fortunately, we did not hurt your clansmen. However, we have taken away a treasure that you used to set up the cave abode's array. We still have things to do and cannot stay here for long. We will discuss the compensation later. Please forgive us. The Blackwater mysterious Ming hugged his precious daughter and looked at Xianmen Tianzong and the others. He shook his head and said, "There's no need for compensation. I just hope that nothing like this will happen again." Even Wang Lin and Shi Tianhao could pose a huge threat to the mysterious underworld race, let alone the entire Xianmen Tianzong. The mysterious underworld race was also part of the demon race. In most cases, the strong of the demon race would not apologize or compensate the weak. The strong of the demon race would not touch the interests of the weak, either because they did not care about these interests or because they were afraid of other powerhouses of the same level or stronger. As the Blackwater mysterious Ming was speaking, the little Xian Ming in his arms looked at Tunton and suddenly said, "Daddy, when can Auntie come and play with us again?" The group of people in the cave residence wanted to laugh when they saw the constipated expression on the Blackwater mysterious Ming's face. Lin Feng also shook his head and laughed. On one hand, the demon race's inheritance was related to bloodline, but on the other hand, it was closely related to the demon spirit. It was hard to say if the demon race's cultivation base was low, but the higher the demon race's cultivation base, the stronger the demon spirit and the more far-reaching the impact would be. When a great demon at the primordial true spirit grade used an undying demon spirit to form a true spirit divine inscription, it would in turn affect the transformation of the physical body and bloodline inheritance. Because he had not directly searched Tunton's soul, Lin Feng could only speculate that the current situation was most likely because of the battle between Tunton and the Blackwater mysterious Ming. In the end, only a wisp of their remnant souls remained, and the battlefield was filled with the aura of their shattered demon spirits. They were both demon race spirits, and because of the mutual contamination, although their bloodlines were different, it created a unique situation similar to brother and sister. As a result, the Blackwater mysterious Ming was naturally close to Tunton after giving birth to Luling Xianming. On the other side, Tunton was the same. She had made a mistake by asking little Xianming to call her aunt. Due to the strange situation back then, Tunton had no blood relationship with little Xianming, but in terms of perception, little Xianming was closer to her than Blackwater mysterious Ming's brothers and sisters. From a demon spirit perspective, Tunton was the demon race most similar to her father. For Luling Xianming, the demon race closest to her was Tunton, apart from her father, mother, grandfather, grandmother, maternal grandfather, maternal grandmother, and the four elders. In fact, Tunton's closeness was similar to that of her four ancestors. Of course, this was Lin Feng's speculation. It was difficult to determine the truth without searching his soul. The Blackwater mysterious Ming was from the demon race after all, so he had a deep understanding of his race's inheritance. After some thought, he inevitably came to the same conclusion as Lin Feng. However, it was also because of this that he felt particularly pained. His precious daughter was looking at him eagerly, so the Blackwater mysterious Ming could only say helplessly, "There might be a chance in the future." It wasn't a long sentence, but the Blackwater mysterious Ming almost bit his tongue a few times after saying it. Little Xianming nodded in a half-understanding manner and waved his little paw at Tunton. "Remember to visit Luling when Aunt has time." The Blackwater mysterious Ming's face turned even more bitter when he heard this. Tunton looked at little Xianming with a much gentler expression and pursed its lips. "I didn't prepare anything this time. I will bring you some delicious food next time. After saying that, her gaze fell on the Blackwater mysterious Ming. She glared at him and snorted. Just you wait, I won't give up. What are you talking about? Grow up from a 3-inch nail first. Before she could finish speaking, Shi Tianhao carried her out of the cave abode. He looked at Wang Lin and Li Yuanfang in the air, and shook his head repeatedly. Third senior brother, sixth senior brother, let's go. Li Yuanfang frowned slightly, his eyes filled with curiosity. Wang Lin didn't say anything. He immediately got up, put away the Yellow Springs extermination mirror, and swept up Luo Qinggu and the others, who had come out of the cave abode with Shi Tianhao. Then, he tore through the void and left in an instant. The mysterious underworld great sage and his daughter-in-law landed on the Cold Wind Mountain together and met with the Blackwater mysterious Ming and Little Mysterious Ming. Little Mysterious Ming threw himself into his mother's arms. After the Blackwater mysterious Ming explained the situation clearly, he exchanged glances with the mysterious underworld great sage and his son and sighed in unison. After quickly leaving the Cold Wind Mountain, Shenmen Tianzong and the others followed the guidance of the Yuan magnetic steel essence and headed north. Along the way, everyone had strange expressions on their faces. Yang Qing repeatedly shook her head. Why bother? Why bother? Even Chu Yang was dumbstruck after learning a few things. He could only sigh inwardly as he looked at the still fuming Tunten. One could not judge a Taotai by its appearance. However, Wang Lin's expression remained the same. He suddenly stopped in his tracks and said, "We're here." Everyone looked over and saw that there was a huge rift valley in front of them, and there was a strong magnetic force emanating from it. Suddenly, Wang Lin and Shi Tianhao's eyes flashed and they looked in the same direction. Chapter 9:24. What appeared in front of Wang Lin, Shi Tianhao, and the others was a huge rift valley. It was so deep that one couldn't see the end of it. Looking down through the crack at the entrance of the valley, one could faintly see a ray of white light in the darkness. Apart from this, there was also an extremely strong magnetic force. With such strong magnetic force, even Wang Lin's divine sense would find it difficult to venture deeper. Even though they were still outside the rift valley, they could feel their divine sense expanding outwards with great difficulty, and their perception abilities were greatly reduced. But even so, Wang Lin and Shi Tianhao both looked at the distant sky at the same time. They had a vague feeling in their hearts. But that strange feeling disappeared in a flash, and when they tried to search more carefully, they lost all traces. The two brothers exchanged a glance, and Shi Tianhao slowly said, "Even with the interference of the magnetic steel mine, they must at least be at the return to void stage or above the primordial true spirit stage to be able to evade our senses." Wang Lin nodded and indifferently said, "We have the advantage after entering the magnetic steel mine." Shi Tianhao also smiled. "It's just that it's not suitable for us to split up, and the efficiency will be lower." Wang Lin said, "That can't be helped. We can't use voice transmissions in the mine, and we can't just waste time with them outside the mine. It's better to enter the mine, and we'll have an advantage there. Let's go." Shi Tianhao nodded and looked at Tunten with a smile. "You idiot, you'll have to shrink back a little this time, or you'll suffer." Tunten angrily made a face at him. Everything about this gung metal tiger demon body is good, but it's easily countered by the magnetic force. It's really annoying. Even the jade water magnetic ray array gave her a slight headache, let alone the powerful magnetic force in front of her. If she dared to swagger down, her body would be twisted beyond recognition in the blink of an eye, and she wouldn't even have a chance to resist. In this aspect, she was even inferior to Han Yang, Goldie, and the others. Under the protection of Wang Lin and Shi Tianhao, the younger disciples could still move forward. Shi Tianhao swept up Tunten with his qi and led the group into the rift. Wang Lin was the last to enter and cast a glance at the distant sky before entering. When Wang Lin also disappeared into the rift, the void in the distant sky shook slightly, and the space opened, revealing two clouds and mist. These two clouds hung in the sky. They didn't seem to cover a large area, but the space they were in folded and changed. If they were to spread out, Any one of them could almost cover the entire sky above the Rift Valley. The shadow of a dragon could be vaguely seen in one of the white clouds. The dragon's head and tail could not be seen, but the majestic dragon's might could not be faked. Although it was not as powerful as the blue sky dragon king, its might was still very dense and majestic. Other living beings could not help but want to worship it. It was the dragon might cloud of a dragon race expert that had achieved the unity of the Star Soul stage. Beside the white cloud was a thick black mist. There was no dragon shadow in the black mist, but an extremely terrifying behemoth seemed to be crouching. The aura that seeped out from it was not as noble as the white cloud, but it was more ferocious and tyrannical. Even though it was next to the dragon might cloud, the great demon in the black mist did not feel inferior to the dragon at all. The dragon might's powerful pressure did not affect it at all. It was another great demon that had achieved the unity of the Star Soul stage, the same level as the Dragon King. You've already sensed our presence. Even if you don't know our cultivation level and number, you still dare to enter the Northern Yuan's magnetic valley so casually. An icy voice sounded from the black mist. Although the tone was calm, anyone could sense the tyrannical aura within. Another voice came from the white dragon might cloud beside the black mist. The Northern Yuan's magnetic valley is difficult to explore with divine sense. Those who enter will be suppressed by the magnetic force. Yet they still dare to enter. They must have something up their sleeves. My third senior brother is in the hands of the Celestial Gates Master. I have to find a way to save him. Master and Grand Uncle Kunlong are against the Celestial Gates Master, and the outcome is hard to predict. I can only capture the Celestial Gates Master's disciple in exchange for third senior brother. What a pleasant surprise to meet them while passing through the Northern Yuan's magnetic valley. The great demon in the black mist said, "Uao, why didn't that golden cicada share some of his flesh and blood to take care of you disciples? If that's the case, why are you still learning from him?" Uao Dragon King said calmly, "Ancestral crocodile, my master's flesh and blood may help us in our tribulations, but in the end, it's still up to us. I'm cultivating with my master in hopes that I can learn from his experience in using the dermic dharma to help my demon body." Ancestral crocodile great sage snorted. If it were anyone else, he would not believe it, but Uao Dragon King said it. In infinite wilderness, the demons who had the strength to covet golden cicada's flesh and blood but did not care much about it were the dragon race. Their proud nature made them disdainful of scheming against golden cicada. They were more than willing to challenge the blight tribulations with their own abilities. Of course, if golden cicada provoked them, the dragon race would not mind joining in the hunt for golden cicada, but they would just kill him and be done with it. Apart from the pure-blooded dragon race experts, there were also other great demons in the Black Sea. They were mostly mixed-blood descendants of the primordial sky dragons. Ancestral crocodile great sage was one of them. At the same time, he was also one of the few great demons who had cultivated to the astral soul fusion state. He had lived in seclusion in the Black Sea with the other dragon race members, and had only recently begun to move about in infinite wilderness. This time, he had come with Blue Sky Dragon King to help Lin Feng enter the demon realm. But after Blue Sky Dragon King was defeated by Lin Feng, he knew that it was unwise to provoke Lin Feng on his own. Uao Dragon King shouldered the responsibility of being the bridge between Golden Cicada and the dragon race. He and Ancestral Crocodile Great Sage were old acquaintances, but after learning from Golden Cicada, Uao Dragon King had not returned to the Black Sea for a long time. Now that they had reunited, he wanted to rush over to welcome Kuan Dragon King, but he did not expect to find traces of Wang Lin, Shi Tianhao, and the others. The two great demons discussed and headed towards the Origin magnetic steel mine. "Let's go down too." Uao Dragon King stared at the mine for a moment. They may have some tricks up their sleeves, but as long as we don't split up, they won't be able to do anything. If we use this magnetic steel mine well, it will be very useful. I am a little depressed, but I'm afraid we won't be able to interfere in the battle between Granduncle Kuan Dragon and Master of Celestial Gate. Uao Dragon King's tone was calm, without a hint of dejection. "If that's the case, let's do things where we can." Ancestral crocodile great sage did not object to Ao Dragon King's straightforward words. He said in a low voice, "Let's go. If we wait any longer, the distance will be too great. With the magnetic force, even we won't be able to keep up with them." Saying so, one black and one white cloud descended towards the magnetic steel mine in Northern Plains Magnetic Valley. At the same time, at the bottom of the magnetic valley, Wang Lin, Shi Tianhao, and the others had already reached the entrance of the mine. As far as the eye could see, all they could see was white light. The bright metallic luster was extremely dazzling, and the dense magnetic force made them feel uncomfortable. Wang Lin and Shi Tianhao could still extend their divine sense a little, but the range and accuracy were extremely low. Compared to normal, it was a far cry. Other than the two of them, the others could not send their divine sense out at all, and their perception was at its lowest. In this place, their observation of the outside world completely stopped at the level of the six senses. For people like Yang Qing, Li Yuanfang, Luo Qingwu, Chu Yang, and the others at this moment, only the most intuitive and primitive perception abilities of sight and hearing were left to receive information from the outside world. As for the younger disciples like Han Yang and Huang Jinting, even their five senses and six senses were under the protection of Wang Lin and Shi Tianhao. But the group's expressions remained the same, not the slightest bit surprised. Xianmen Tianzong also had a magnetic steel mine in their own dimensional realm. Once the sect's outstanding disciples reached a certain level of cultivation, they would have to enter it. Of course, they did not enter to mine, but to adapt to the environment in case they needed it in the future. Today, it came in handy. Previously, when Beyond Heaven Mountain was affiliated with Xianmen Tianzong, its disciples had the opportunity to enter the Xianmen realm, and the meticulous Chu Yang had also entered it to train. The reason was very simple. He was used to flying swords, and swords made of pure gold that were not magic weapons would be greatly affected in an environment where the magnetic force was concentrated. Although he might not enter the magnetic valley of the north like he did today, if he encountered a powerful opponent who was good at controlling the magnetic force with supernatural powers, the situation would be the same. Naturally, Chu Yang had to train himself in advance to nip the problem in the bud. Therefore, he could be considered experienced. The moment he entered the magnetic steel mine with Wang Lin, Shi Tianhao, and the others, he put away his sword. Luo Qingwu's disciple, Han Yang, did the same. If he and Chu Yang did not put away their swords, in such a terrifying magnetic force environment, not to mention flying swords, their swords would probably be twisted into a fried dough twist. But this did not mean that the two of them would lose the ability to fight and become a burden. At this moment, Han Yang was looking at the flickering shadows in the mine in front of him. His expression was relaxed, and there was no fear on his face. Instead, his face was filled with curiosity. "Master, what kind of demon is this?" At this moment, the many shadows that appeared in front of them were a group of giant beasts with the torsos of a leopard and the claws of a bird on their limbs. Each of their bodies was huge, like a small elephant. In addition to their normal eyes, there was a third vertical eye on their foreheads. These beasts were covered in colorful patterns, but they flashed with a dazzling white light similar to magnetic steel. Their bodies were like cast iron. The roars that came from their mouths were sharp and ear-piercing, causing one's mind to tremble and feel very uncomfortable. His body was surging with dense magnetic energy, which seemed to repel and attract the environment he was in at the same time. It was unpredictable and hard to fathom. After taking a look, Luo Qingwu turned to look at Shi Tianhao. "Little senior brother, this is the Chou Chen clan, right?" Chou Chen was one of the many demons in Tianhuang mainland. They had the body of a leopard, the claws of a bird, and were born with 3 eyes. Their race's innate divine ability allowed them to control magnetic force to a certain extent. Their favorite places to live were places rich in magnetic force. Shi Tianhao nodded. "That's right, this is Chou Chen." Wang Lin said calmly, "The people from before have also followed us. Let's quickly pass through here and go deeper into the mine ahead to make arrangements. If they really intend to harm us, we'll welcome them." Chapter 925. Sixth junior brother. Wang Lin turned to look at Li Yuanfang. Li Yuanfang nodded and handed the quartet of yuan magnetic steel pith to Wang Lin. The appearance of this yuan magnetic steel pith immediately caused the yuan magnetic steel vein that everyone was in to shake violently. The violent magnetic force seemed to have taken on a tangible form, distorting the space where Wang Lin and the others were standing. Wang Lin's expression did not change. He looked at this scene calmly. A large door appeared above his head. The door was half black and half white. The left side was as black as ink. Images flashed, showing the changes of the sea. It was orderly and filled with a feeling that the past could not be recalled. It was ancient and vicissitudes. The right side of the door was as white as jade. The carvings on it changed constantly. It looked messy, but it was filled with countless possibilities. It made people feel endless hope. This was the second technique of Wang Lin's four symbols realm technique, the ancient and present realm. The door to the ancient and present realms suddenly opened, then suddenly closed. Time seemed to flow backward. This mysterious power was added to the yuan magnetic steel pith. The surrounding violent magnetic force immediately calmed down. At the same time, there seemed to be various attractive forces coming from the depths of the vein. They constantly pulled the yuan magnetic steel pith. The pith also shook, as if it had a life of its own. It revealed an emotion of wanting to return to its roots. With the help of this attractive force, Wang Lin, Shi Tianhao, and the others identified the direction. Using this as a guide, they went deeper into the vein. Wang Lin and Shi Tianhao did not reveal their aura. They looked like ordinary people. Under such circumstances, the local Chouchen naturally would not allow outsiders to enter their territory. They immediately surrounded them. Wang Lin and Shi Tianhao did not attack. They did not even bother to look at the Chouchen, who were at most in the Demon Commander realm. They walked forward on their own. Li Yuanfang, Luo Qinggu, and a group of junior disciples were in charge of dealing with these attacks on Chouchen. It was considered as a form of training for them. Yang Qing did not do anything either. She merely observed the situation and supported them. Li Yuanfang and Luo Qinggu were both nonchalant, leaving most of the work to the younger disciples. The group of people fought as they walked. As they walked, Wang Lin took out another item. It was a simple and crude compass. There were no clear markings on the compass, only a needle that kept swaying. This thing was a rare anti-magnetic stone obtained by Xianmen Tianzong when they mined their own magnetic steel vein. After polishing and refining it, it became a treasure. The needle could not point out the direction in the vein, but it could give an early warning from a very long distance. The direction the needle was pointing in meant that there was someone other than the owner of the compass who was repelled by the magnetic force that didn't belong to the vein. The more stable the swaying needle was, the closer the other party was to the owner of the compass. Wang Lin sacrificially refined the compass. At the same time, he also sacrificially refined the magic power aura of Shi Tianhao and the others. In this case, the direction of the compass would not be disturbed. It would only point to the direction of the people who entered the magnetic steel mine other than the people from the celestial sect of Xianmen. Moreover, the wonderful thing about this object was that it would not be misled by the Chouchen beasts. Because the Chouchen beasts lived in this mine, even though they were not truly like fish in water, they would not be repelled by the magnetic force. Therefore, the needle of the compass would not point at them, but at other outsiders. Wang Lin and the others continued forward with the compass and the marrow oars. Suddenly, the needle of the compass, which had been pointing behind them, began to shake violently. It started to spin, unable to point in a fixed direction. Just as Wang Lin was feeling astonished, the compass needle suddenly stopped spinning. Although it was still trembling, its direction gradually stabilized. This time, the needle was pointing in front of them. Wang Lin and Shi Tianhao looked at each other. Other outsiders came in before us? No wonder the Chouchen beasts here have such low cultivation levels, and there are not many of them. It looks like most of the strong Chouchen beasts were attracted by those who came before us. As they advanced deeper into the vein, the scene in front of them suddenly changed. The entire vein seemed to have come alive, shaking non-stop. Wang Lin, Shi Tianhao, and the others felt as if they had entered the belly of a giant beast. And in the belly of this giant beast, the magnetic force suddenly went berserk. The invisible magnetic force even condensed into terrifying rays of magnetic light, crisscrossing, trying to kill Shenmen Tianzong and the others. Wang Lin and Shi Tianhao did not hold back anymore. They used their transcendence energy to resist the chaotic magnetic light. Li Yuanfang looked around. It's a formation. The leader of the Chouchen clan in this vein has activated some kind of unique formation, using this magnetic steel vein as a geographical advantage to deal with the outsiders. With that, Li Yuanfang closed his eyes. Purple light flashed around him, turning into mysterious talismans that gathered above his head. These talismans were arranged according to a unique pattern. In an instant, they formed a small but extremely intricate and complicated formation. The formation pattern formed a circle, like a round mirror. The light from the talismans became dazzling, gathering together like a real mirror light. It swept and shone in the magnetic steel vein. This was the second formation divine ability that Li Yuanfang had created from the 8 trigram scripture of the Great Way of the Heavens, the Insight Treasured Mirror Formation technique. It was a mysterious and unique divine ability that allowed him to see through other people's spells and divine abilities. With Li Yuanfang's current cultivation, he naturally could not see through all spells and divine abilities. However, it was enough for him to observe the formation in front of him. In fact, there were many formations that Li Yuanfang did not even need to use the Insight Treasured Mirror Formation technique. He could understand the general depth of the formation with just a few glances. For example, the Jade Water Magnetic Ray Array formation at Cold Wind Mountain. But now, he was using the Insight Treasured Mirror Formation technique. On one hand, the cultivation of the person who set up the formation was higher. On the other hand, it was because the magnetic force could cut off one's divine sense. After a short while, Li Yuanfang opened his eyes. Light flashed in his eyes, as if there were countless talisman diagrams surging together. There are a total of 6,784 formation patterns. The traces of the ancient technique are slightly heavy. Using the Hulua numeration method to calculate 53 formation patterns as a group. The Great Development and 3 talents as one. Deduction complete. Beginning to supplement. Adding 1,408 formation patterns to the original foundation. After supplementing, there are a total of 8,192 formation patterns. Form the 8 trigrams. Open. Li Yuanfang's hands kept changing hand seals. In an instant, countless talisman diagrams flew out from his fingertips. They gathered in midair and condensed into a huge 8 trigrams diagram. After the 8 trigrams diagram was completely formed, Li Yuanfang's right hand lightly tapped its center. This 8 trigrams diagram then fell onto the magnetic steel or marrow in Wang Lin's hand. An 8 trigrams diagram appeared on all 6 sides of the hard or marrow at the same time. It was as if it had been there since birth. Li Yuanfang had comprehended the 8 trigrams Great Way scripture of the 8 trigrams and created his first formation divine ability, the mysterious pivot 8 trigrams immortal formation. Wang Lin nodded. Like Zhu Yi, he also knew his 6 junior brothers' methods very well. Although the magnetic steel or vein they were in was still shaking and twisting, with the cooperation of Li Yuanfang's mysterious pivot 8 trigrams immortal formation and the marrow, the formation that activated the power of the magnetic steel or vein could no longer pose a threat to them. Everyone continued to move forward. Soon, the view in front of them became clear. They had come to a huge mine. A group of people appeared in front of them, fighting against the spinning and twisting magnetic light. Shi Tianhao and the others looked carefully at the other party. They could not help but have a strange expression. Oh, an old acquaintance. The person who appeared in front of them was the great Zhou dynasty's prince of Yanliang, Liang Fu, who had just gone to Kunlun Mountain to negotiate the ransom. Beside Liang Fu was a Taoist in a white robe. He had white hair and a youthful complexion. He had a sage-like demeanor and was surrounded by faint white clouds. He was the primordial spirit of the great Zhou dynasty, Li Yao, whom Meng Qi had met once when he was exploring the Kunpeng's secret in the Arctic Ice Sea. Along with them were other great Zhou dynasties Yuanyin period, Golden Elixir period, and even Foundation Establishment period cultivators. The group was calmly dealing with the situation in front of them. Liang Fu was obviously at ease. With him bearing the majority of the offense, although Li Yao's expression was solemn, he did not feel too much pressure. Especially the group of cultivators under them. Looking at their attire and aura, they were the great Zhou dynasty's famous divine martial army. After these cultivators set up the divine martial immortal extermination formation, the quantitative change immediately caused a qualitative change. Liang Fu and the others' strength was far from the bottom. No wonder they dared to go against the Chou Chen clan's formation that had the geographical advantage. However, after seeing Wang Lin, Shi Tianhao, and the others, although Liang Fu and Li Yao's expressions did not change, their slightly flickering eyes showed that they were not calm at the moment. Speaking of the root cause, the relationship between Xianmen Tianzong and the Great Zhou dynasty had never been too harmonious. Previously, sparks had been flying in the Battle of Yingxi. After that, in the Battle of Xian Extermination, although the Great Zhou dynasty did not directly attack Yujing Mountain, they had participated in it. After the battle, they were forced to cede territory and pay reparations. This was because Lin Feng's direct disciple, Zhou Yunzong, had been kidnapped by Golden Cicada. Therefore, Lin Feng had rushed to Tianhuang vast land as soon as the dust settled after the Battle of Mount Shu. Otherwise, even if they did not start another war with the Great Zhou dynasty, it was inevitable that they would join forces with the Great Qin dynasty and other forces to further restrict the Great Zhou dynasty. Liang Fu and Li Yao both knew that at this moment Wang Lin, Shi Tianhao, and the others did not hit them when they were down. It could be said that they were quite moral. Seeing Liang Fu and the other great Zhou dynasty cultivators, although Xianmen Tianzong and the others were a little surprised, they quickly understood that the great Zhou dynasty cultivators were also here for the origin magnetic steel. Origin magnetic steel was a material that the great Zhou dynasty urgently needed. It played a vital role in improving the strength of the divine martial army. Rumor had it that it was even beneficial to the Grand Imperial Palace. However, origin magnetic steel was rare and hard to find, so the great Zhou dynasty had been thinking of all kinds of ways to collect it. Back then, there was an origin magnetic steel mine in Xianmen Tianzong's Xiantian realm, which made the great Zhou dynasty drool. During the Battle of Xian Extermination, Xianmen Tianzong had temporarily retreated from the Xiantian realm. At that time, some great Zhou cultivators suggested that even if they did not occupy the Xiantian realm, they should first plunder the origin magnetic steel mine and simply dig up the roots. Unfortunately, Lin Feng returned too quickly. In reality, the Battle of Xian Extermination lasted for a very short time. As a result, the great Zhou dynasty's mining team had to return dejectedly when they reached the gate of the Xiantian realm. Wang Lin, Shi Tianhao, and the others naturally did not have a good impression of Liang Fu's group. However, they could not be bothered to waste time on Liang Fu's group. Thus, the people of the Celestial Sect of Wonders treated the large number of people from the Great Zhou dynasty as air and directly fell towards the tunnel in the center of the mine that led deeper into the vein. Seeing that Wang Lin, Shi Tianhao, and the others were not afraid of their formation and headed straight for the marrow, the Chou Chen clan could not sit still and had to personally stop them. Chapter 926. Facing the Chou Chen clan's attack, Wang Lin and Shi Tianhao were only on guard and did not attack. The presence of Liang Fu, riding Cloud Immortal, and the others caused the geomantic compass to be temporarily disrupted. Wang Lin and Shi Tianhao both focused their attention on their surroundings, especially their backs. Although they did not know that Yuao Dragon King and Ancestral Crocodile Great Sage had entered with them, Wang Lin and Shi Tianhao were on high alert. The Chou Chen were naturally handled by Yang Qing and the others. There were no Chou Chen with immortal demon souls here, so Yang Qing and the others had no problem dealing with them. Yang Qing used the minor yin entering calamity transformation of the four symbols yin-yang transformation, using the yin within yang to manifest the yin realm of calamity. She calmly led the way. With a smile on her face, Luo Qingwu automatically fell to the back of the team and was responsible for covering the rear. Her profound Che sword was not affected by the magnetic force in the slightest. The ice sword, which was as black as ink but also glittering and translucent, danced lightly in her palm. It was graceful yet contained a frightening murderous intent. Li Yuanfang walked in the middle, beside Wang Lin and Shi Tianhao, but he did not remain idle either. His hand seals changed as he set up the profound pivot 8 trigrams immortal formation again. This formation was intricately profound, capable of both offense and defense. As the formation changed, it twisted time and space, allowing it to move with Li Yuanfang. Some Chouchen charged into the formation and were unable to escape, while others were isolated outside the formation, unable to break in. Xianmen Tianzong and the others were calm as usual, moving at their own pace. Even at a time like this, they did not forget to train their juniors. The Chouchen placed in the formation were all demon marshals and demon generals carefully selected by Li Yuanfeng. They were specially trained for Han Yang, Tan Yunqing, Huang Jinting, and Zhuge Wanqiu. Chu Yang followed closely behind Yang Qing, acting as the vanguard. Since he had come in with Xianmen Tianzong and the others, he naturally did not want to be a burden. However, he also did not want to be a guest and steal the spotlight. Although he could not use his sword, he had his own ways to kill Chouchen. As he moved forward, Chu Yang was also observing the performance of Xianmen Tianzong and the others. Yang Qingming's behavior was completely out of his expectations. Chu Yang naturally did not know what had happened to Yang Qingming. Li Yuanfang and Luo Qingwu's strength was within his expectations, but the two of them were obviously still at ease, so Chu Yang couldn't judge their exact strength. On the other hand, the performance of Han Yang and the other younger disciples made Chu Yang's eyes light up. He sighed in his heart that Xianmen Tianzong indeed had a successor. As Xiao Yan, Zhu Yi, Wang Lin, and Shi Tianhao, the 4 heroes of the celestial sect, reached the primordial divinity stage, as Yu Hongyan and Yang Qing successively formed their nascent souls. Li Yuanfang and Luo Qingwu were also close to forming their nascent souls, as Dao Yuding, Zhou Yunsong, Lin Tong, Tang Jun, Ying Luoza, and the others successively formed their gold cores. Han Yang, Goldie, and other outstanding talents emerged one after another. The celestial sect of the celestial. Sect of the celestial 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 sect of the celestial. Based on the rumors that Chu Yang had heard, there were also many outstanding figures among the 3rd generation of Xianmen Tianzong. Talents emerged in large numbers in every generation, and experts emerged in every cultivation realm. The overall structure of Xianmen Tianzong finally began to gradually become reasonable and complete. Today, Xianmen Tianzong was still in a state of rapid growth, and there was still great potential to be tapped. When Li Yuanfang and Luo Qingwu had also formed their nascent souls, and when Lin Feng's 8 personal disciples had all reached the primordial divinity stage, and when Zhou Yunsong, Tang Jun, Han Yang, and the others had achieved Yuanying, and when the 3rd generation of disciples began to enter the golden elixir period, Xianmen Tianzong could be considered to have truly set foot on its own period of maturity. At that time, Xianmen Tianzong had officially left the initial stage of the sect. Generally speaking, the time taken for a sect to reach maturity from the founding stage of the sect was not uniform, and there was no clear standard. However, it could be said that it was extremely rare for the celestial sect of wonders to reach the scale of the Holy Land in less than 10 years in the Great Thousand World. Even the Great Leiyin Temple, which was widely recognized as the most brilliant meteor in the history of the Divine Land, and the ancient Heavenly Gates, which was widely recognized as the most brilliant meteor in the history of the cultivation world, could not achieve such a rapid speed. If one really had to say, perhaps only the Taishu Taoist of the past could establish the Taishu Temple a little faster. However, long before the Taishu Taoist established the Taishu Temple, in the archaic era, the disciples under him had already formed a system that was passed down from generation to generation. It was only during the ancient era that the sect was officially established on the White Cloud Mountain. The rise of Xianmen Tianzong could be said to be legendary in the history of the entire Tianyuan world. From what Chu Yang could see, Han Yang, Tan Yunqing, and the other disciples of the younger generation were also extremely outstanding. Faced with the demon commander and demon general that Li Yuanfang had deliberately let in, the four of them did not panic and went up to meet them. As he grew older, Huang Zhenting's temperament had matured a lot compared to when he was young. However, he was still the most excited of the four. He took the lead and charged at the very front. Faced with the two demon generals that pounced at him, he did not even look at them and directly sent them flying with 2 kicks. He stared at one of the demon commanders and took the initiative to meet it. As he took a step forward, his body surged with layers of lightning. The densely packed lightning snakes constantly pulsed and enveloped his entire body. As Huang Zhenting walked, the sound of his footsteps became louder and louder. In the end, it was like the rumbling of thunder, shocking one's soul. His originally tall body was now completely enveloped by the greenish-purple lightning. He looked like a giant that was 2 or 3 meters tall, and was not much smaller than the demon commander Cho Chen's body. Huang Zhenting had used a secret technique of Xianmen Tianzong's Heaven Desolate Valley lineage, the body of Thunder Caddy. This technique was created by Shi Tianhao after he created his own Barren Sky Valley's scripture of wind and thunder. It was a powerful technique that was derived from the scripture of wind and thunder. It was not only a technique to train one's body, it was also a powerful battle technique. There was also a corresponding technique called the Divine Wind Body of the 9 Heavens. The body of Thunder Caddy possessed the ferocious power of thunder and lightning, while the Divine Wind Body of the 9 Heavens possessed the speed and sharpness of the heavenly wind. After the successors of Heaven Desolate Valley had established their own Dao technique foundation, they could choose which technique they wanted to cultivate. Just like Wang Lin's Extreme Yellow Springs Finger could be considered a simplified version of Wang Lin's Yellow Springs Finger of Annihilation, the body of Thunder Caddy and the Divine Wind Body of the 9 Heavens were also simplified versions of Shi Tianhao's movement of heaven and thunder. Although individually, they were not as good as Shi Tianhao's movement of heaven and thunder, they were still excellent techniques and were less difficult to cultivate than the movement of heaven and thunder. If a disciple cultivated both the body of Thunder Caddy and the Divine Wind Body of the 9 Heavens, they would be able to cultivate Shi Tianhao's movement of heaven and thunder. Goldie was the strongest cultivator of Heaven Desolate Valley. He had mastered the body of Thunder Caddy and the Divine Wind Body of the 9 Heavens, but he was still lacking in maturity. Once he mastered the Divine Wind Body of the 9 Heavens, he would be able to directly break through to the Golden Elixir realm. After successfully forming his core, he would be able to cultivate the movement of heaven and thunder. Looking at Cho Chen in front of him, Huang Zhenting laughed and directly collided with him, not taking a single step back. The magnetic energy in this place was rich and would affect others, including Goldie's own spiritual sense. However, when he used the body of Thunder Caddy to fight, the magnetic energy would actually increase his strength, just like with Cho Chen's clan. Huang Zhenting was already well aware of this back when he was in his own magnetic steel mine and had specially practiced it. Thus, Cho Chen would not be able to gain the upper hand if he fought with him. However, Cho Chen's clan clearly had no intention of fighting Goldie alone. Very soon, other Cho Chens surrounded him, including many Cho Chens who were demon commanders. Tan Yunqing said in a low voice, "Let's work together against the enemy. The faster we finish them, the better." As he spoke, his hand's seals changed, already beginning to prepare a formation. Han Yang smiled nonchalantly and went up to support Huang Zhenting. He could not use his sword artifact, but he had inherited the way of the sword from Luo Qingwu's light dance pavilion. Although he could cultivate his natal sword artifact, it did not mean that he was completely focused on the sword. He held his index and middle fingers together like a sword and pointed at Cho Chen, who was pouncing at Goldie from the side. Immediately, a black sword chi shot out. Even the demon commander Cho Chen was extremely wary of the desolate sword intent. He did not dare to come into contact with it and hurriedly dodged. Han Yang stabbed another Cho Chen demon general to death. Then, he attacked a third time and forced another Cho Chen demon commander to retreat. This was a remarkable ability of the way of the sword derived from Luo Qingwu's mysterious sword cannon after she established her light dance pavilion's mysterious sword cannon. It was called the Seven Swords of the Big Dipper, and there was also the 6 swords of the Southern Dipper. The 7 swords of the Big Dipper represented death, and all 7 sword techniques were extremely ruthless. They were swords of destruction and were extremely powerful. However, this path of the way of the sword also consumed a lot of energy. In particular, Han Yang currently did not have a sword in his hand and was relying entirely on his own energy to activate the sword chi, so the consumption was even greater. However, Han Yang's fighting style was extremely nimble. He was rather talented in the way of movement, so he used the second of Shenmen Tianzong's 8 techniques of heaven and earth to the extreme. Even the demon commander Cho Chen found it very difficult to catch him. Some of the attacks that had to be taken head-on were all blocked by Goldie. If the Cho Chen wanted to gather their forces to attack Goldie, they would be threatened by Han Yang, who was fighting on the periphery. With every strike of his 7 swords of the Big Dipper, a demon general or a demon commander would be killed. Although the 2 of them came from different cave abodes and did not work together much before, they were very well coordinated at this moment. One was good and the other strange. For a moment, the many Cho Chen could not do anything to them, and instead, they suffered losses. One of the Cho Chen demon commanders roared angrily at the sky, and the 3rd vertical eye between its brows suddenly lit up. A spiral-shaped bright white light shot out. This was the Cho Chen clan's strongest offensive ability, the magnetic treasure light. This treasure light was extremely powerful. Even if Goldie used the thunder crash body, if he was hit, a hole would be opened in his well-tempered body. Once Goldie dodged, the line of defense would be shaken, and even Han Yang would be in danger. At this moment, a small chaotic hole suddenly appeared in front of Huang Jinting. The small chaotic hole was also filled with rolling lightning. However, the lightning looked a little strange, and it gave off a quiet feeling. The most violent lightning in the world gave off an abnormal feeling of tranquility. It was like the flow of water, and the toughness of the world suddenly turned into the softest. When the Cho Chen demon commander's magnetic treasure light landed in the chaotic hole of lightning, it was dissolved by the water-like lightning and could not continue to cause trouble. This was another ability derived from the scripture of wind and thunder of the desolate Sky Valley lineage, the Thunder Pool technique. It was a purely defensive technique, but its defensive power was very satisfying, making it difficult for the enemy's attacks to cross the Thunder Pool. Not far behind Huang Jinting, Zhuge Wanqiu formed hand seals and repeatedly used the Thunder Pool technique to help him block the magnetic treasure light of the other Cho Chen demon commanders. The 2 sides fought back and forth for several rounds, but in reality, it was only a short period of time. When Han Yang suddenly attacked and severely injured demon Marshal Cho Chen, Tan Yunqing said in a low voice, 8-gate star fixing array, open. Chapter 927. Han Yang, Huang Jinting, and Zhuge Wanqiu held them back at the front, while Tan Yunqing activated the 8-gates star fixing formation derived from Li Yuanfang's Heluoju lineage's Dao technique, the 8-gates mysterious pivot formula. Treasure light lit up, and a huge 8 trigrams diagram floated in the air around the group of Cho Chen. As the light flickered, all the Cho Chen demons were suppressed by a mysterious power. The demon general Cho Chen was directly immobilized on the spot. Although he was conscious, not a single hair on his body trembled, as if he was a clay puppet or a wooden statue. The demon commander Cho Chen could still move, but his movements had clearly become sluggish. His reaction speed and movement speed had all slowed down. Han Yang snickered. With another Big Dipper sword chi, he killed the demon commander Cho Chen that he had just heavily injured. Cho Chen roared angrily, feeling extremely stifled. However, he could only watch as the Foundation establishment Han Yang pierced his head with a sword. Tan Yunqing's hands did not stop. After the 8-gates star fixing formation, she immediately began to prepare another Heluoju lineage's formation, the absolute breath-killing formation. This time, she did not just use her magic power to set up the formation. She also threw out 8 small flags that were positioned in the 8 trigrams. Unlike the 8-gates star-fixing array that was used to trap and lock the enemy, the absolute breath-killing array, as its name suggested, was a powerful array that specialized in killing. The power of the array would erupt in an instant, and its lethality was extremely high. At the same time, the formation that Tan Yunqing had previously set up would also be detonated, increasing its power. In Tan Yunqing's plan, the main attack and restraint could be alternated at any time to obtain the best results and the most secure victory. After she set up the 8-gate star-fixing formation, as long as Han Yang switched to the 6 Southern Dipper swords and matched it with Zhuge Wanqiu's lightning pool technique and the world-dominating technique of the 8 laws of heaven and earth, he would be able to completely trap the Chou Chen without the time to pay attention to anything else. Next, Tan Yunqing laid down the absolute breath-killing formation. On the other side, Huang Zhenting prepared a powerful divine ability that belonged solely to him, the 9 continents of wind and thunder. With the two of them working together, Chou Chen, who was previously restrained by Han Yang, Zhuge Wanqiu, and the 8-gate star-fixing formation, could only wait for death. Although it was time-consuming and laborious to set up, and there were many restrictions, the power of the formation was among the best of the same level of magical abilities and spells most of the time. As for Huang Zhenting's 9 continents of wind and thunder, according to Tan Yunqing's knowledge, it was a divine ability that Huang Zhenting had comprehended after cultivating the sect's direct line of inheritance, the 8-trigram scripture of the Great Way of the Heavens. Its power was naturally something to look forward to. The absolute aura-killing formation and the 9 states of wind and lightning technique were enough to wipe out both Demon Commander Chou Chen and Demon General Chou Chen. Tan Yunqing quickly calculated in her mind, and she quickly rehearsed everything in her mind. She also communicated with the other 3 people. That's too slow. Who knew that when Han Yang heard this, he chuckled. He did not stop and continued to attack the other demon Marshal Chou Chen with the Big Dipper sword Qi. Seeing this, Tan Yunqing's brows immediately furrowed. Han Yang did not reply, and he was already engaged in battle with that demon Marshal Chou Chen. Almost at the same time, Huang Zhenting also let out a long howl and switched from defense to offense. He took a big step forward, and his ghost-like body of lightning erupted with astonishing power and speed. He pounced in front of Demon Marshal Chou Chen, who was frantically dodging Han Yang's sword Qi. Huang Zhenting punched him in the head with both fists. Demon Marshal Chou Chen let out an earth-shattering scream. Blood flowed from his mouth, nose, ears, and 3 of his eyes. He pounced toward Huang Zhenting in a frenzy. The 3rd vertical eye between his brows flashed, and a vital magnetic beam shot toward Huang Zhenting. Zhuge Wanqiu agreed with Tan Yunqing's plan, but when she saw Han Yang and Huang Zhenting rush out together, she sighed inwardly. She, who was extremely familiar with Goldie, had already raised a jade ruler the moment it charged out. It was an Aurus core magical item, and it transformed into a resplendent stream of light that flew over. She met Demon Marshal Chou Chen's essence-fused treasured light with an attack, and it happened to shatter Demon Marshal Chou Chen's magnetic light. After blocking this attack for Goldie, Zhuge Wanqiu's flying thunder ruler did not stop, and it even killed the already heavily injured Demon Marshal Chou Chen. However, at this moment, the remaining 2 demon marshals roared angrily and pounced toward Han Yang and Huang Zhenting. They wanted to take this opportunity to kill them. That's exactly what I want. Han Yang still had a nonchalant smile on his face, but a cold light flickered in his eyes. His left hand formed a strange sword seal, and his right hand moved up and down. His index and middle fingers formed a sword, and he shouted in a low voice, "Go!" As he shouted, a red light flashed on Han Yang's fingertips. Then, dozens of black sword Qi mixed with red light rushed out of his fingertips, forming an inescapable net. The 2 demon marshals that were attacking them had basically walked right into the net. They could only watch helplessly as they crashed into the sword Qi net. After all, they had already formed their Yao cores, and their strength was extraordinary. They wanted to control their bodies and retreat, but they discovered that the black sword Qi net had already surrounded them, and they were being strangled in the middle. The 2 Chou Chen roared angrily, magnetic light flashing around their bodies. However, the violent red light of the black sword Qi net cut the magnetic light into pieces. As the head disciple of the Light Dance Pavilion, Han Yang cultivated the supreme path of Xianmen Tianzong's direct lineage, the first chapter of the heavenly virtue scripture of the 8 trigrams of the Great Tao. He had comprehended his own mystique, the sword of annihilation, the sword of annihilation. Seeing that they were about to be torn apart, the 2 Cho-Chun demon marshals roared angrily. The third eye at the center of their brows continuously emitted rays of magnetic light. They wanted to take Han Yang and Huang Zhenting down with them. Huang Zhenting chuckled. His body lit up, and a set of black armor appeared. It was also a golden elixir period arcane artifact called the Curse Refining Profound Armor. It could strengthen Huang Zhenting's blood energy, and it could also be used defensively. Summoning the Curse Refining Profound Armor and focusing on defense, Huang Zhenting forcefully withstood the dying counterattacks of the 2 Cho-Chun demon marshals for Han Yang and himself. On the other hand, Han Yang's calculations were extremely precise. He only needed Goldie to delay him for a moment, and his Sword of Heaven's annihilation would have already killed the 2 demon commanders. The 2 demon commanders' desperate counterattacks were all bark and no bite, unable to cause much of a stir. This sword was executed by the Foundation Establishment Han Yang. Even Chu Yang was slightly stunned by it. His heart skipped a beat. This sword Dao is even sharper and fiercer than Xianmen Tianzong's own Big Dipper 7 swords. This is a sword intent that has advanced the sword of annihilation. It is even purer and more condensed. Although it is still immature and has the potential to improve, it is already above Mount Shu's Li Feng's in terms of concept. Chu Yang took a light breath. This sword seems to have been born from Senior Lin's Heaven Annihilation Sword Qi. After the Battle of Jade Capital Mountain, after Lin Feng had returned, he had communicated with the Celestial Hall with his spiritual consciousness. He knew that there were many members of his family in the Celestial Hall constructed from spiritual consciousness and spiritual power. Therefore, Lin Feng had decisively broadcasted the entire process of him killing Jie Luosher, Su Anda, and the others, as well as the Battle of Mount Shu afterwards. This had calmed the hearts of the people who had panicked from the retreat of their defenses. At the same time, it had boosted the sect's morale. Chu Yang and the people of Heavens Beyond Mountain had witnessed the entire process. Chu Yang had a deep impression of Lin Feng's Heaven Annihilation Sword Qi. Now that he looked at Han Yang's Sword of Annihilation again, he could vaguely see some clues. In fact, Han Yang's Sword Dao had incorporated some of the essence of Lin Feng's Heaven Annihilation Sword Qi while comprehending his own 8 trigrams of the Great Way of Heaven. Lin Feng's Dharmakaya, which he had entrusted to Li Yuanfang and Luo Qingwu, had also witnessed the sword just now. He smiled in his heart and said, "I've already touched the threshold, but I still need to polish it." Luo Qingwu had not inherited Lin Feng's Heaven Annihilation Sword Qi, but that did not mean that she had no understanding of it. She had guided Han Yang in his daily cultivation, and Han Yang had gradually figured out some of the ways to it. Finally, he had created his own Sword of Annihilation. As his cultivation continued to increase in the future, his understanding of the Heaven Annihilation Sword Qi would become deeper and deeper. Han Yang had a high chance of comprehending the Heaven Annihilation Sword Qi in its entirety. At the same time, his Sword of Annihilation might also be able to take a new path and achieve a new vision. Whether it was Lin Feng or Luo Qingwu, they were both happy to see their disciples forge their own paths. Lin Feng had high hopes for this kid. After all, he was a good seedling with a total of 32 points in all 4 attributes of innate potential. More importantly, out of all 4 of this kid's innate potential, one of them was full value. Bone endowment, 7 points, comprehension, 10 points, willpower, 8 points, luck, 7 points. Lin Feng shook his head and laughed. Otherwise, why would I say that I reaped great rewards during my 3rd opening of the mountain gate? Of course, geniuses always had many problems. Putting aside the first-generation disciples like Xiao Yan, as the only one among the second-generation disciples who had a full value in one attribute, Han Yang was also a problem child, just like Zhou Yunzong, who had a total value of 32 points. It might be biased to say that he was a problem child, but at the very least, he was a rather controversial person. Within the sect, there were many people who did not get along with him. For example, Tan Yunqing, who was very close to him at this moment, was staring at him with a frown. Tan Yunqing's personality was calm and self-disciplined, but it was also accompanied by a competitive stubbornness. She was extremely strict with others and herself, and was meticulous in her actions. At the same time, her actions were swift and decisive, and she left no leeway, nor did she give others any face. At this moment, she was staring at Han Yang with an unfriendly expression. Han Yang, do you know that what you did just now put you and senior brother Huang in a dangerous situation? Han Yang raised his eyebrows slightly. He nonchalantly killed the demonic generals who were still trapped in the 8-gate star positioning formation, and casually replied, "Dangerous situation? I don't think so. Everything depends on the results. Aren't senior brother Huang and I both fine now?" Tan Yunqing said coldly, "If we followed the original plan, we could have been more secure and killed these Chochin beasts without the slightest mistake. If you think that my plan is bad and you don't want to cooperate, that's fine. If your plan is more outstanding than mine, then we will cooperate with you. But the facts have proven that you are completely playing with fire." Han Yang smiled. "I admit that I didn't follow your plan because I felt that it was too unsatisfying and too slow." When he used the annihilating heavenly net to kill the 2 Chochin demon commanders, Tan Yunqing still needed a considerable amount of time to finish setting up the absolute aura killing formation. Of course, this period of time was actually not very long for ordinary people, and it would arrive in the blink of an eye. However, to Han Yang and the others, they had probably not even finished setting up the formation yet. Since we can finish it faster, why waste so much time? Han Yang smiled. Moreover, using the absolute aura killing formation will consume a lot of your 8 formation flags, so why waste them like this? It's completely unnecessary. As for the danger, a light flickered in Han Yang's eyes and he calmly said, "Since I dared to do it, I naturally have the confidence." "What danger do you mean?" Chapter 928. Han Yang looked at Tan Yunqing and said with a smile, "The outcome after the event is the only way to test the success of the plan. You said that I was playing with fire, but in my opinion, it is the opposite. The reality proves that I succeeded." Tan Yunqing stared at him and slowly shook her head. "You won the gamble, but it doesn't mean that your gamble was correct. If I have to take the risk, then I'm not a stubborn person or a coward. But there is clearly a safer method, so why take the risk? You won the gamble this time, but it doesn't mean that you will win every time, and it doesn't mean that you will always win. If you fail even once, the consequences may be severe." Tan Yunqing walked in front of Han Yang and looked at him coldly. "Don't tell me nonsense like you will bear all the consequences. There are many things where the consequences are so severe that you can't bear them just because you say so. Just like this time, if you fail, not only will you be in danger, but you will also implicate senior brother Huang. People of different paths cannot make plans together. If you insist on doing things your own way, I have no intention of forcefully interfering, but if you implicate others, you cannot simply do as you please. The elders of the sect have been warning us about this since the first day we entered the sect. If you are so self-centered, not only will you harm yourself, but you will also harm other fellow sect members." Han Yang laughed and turned to look at Tan Yunqing. "On the contrary, Tan Yunqing, you can't see the crux of the matter." He smiled. "It is precisely because my companions are you that I believe you can keep up with me. That is why I did what I did. Because I clearly know your strength, I am confident that my method will succeed. If it were some other weaker fellow sect members, I naturally wouldn't do this. If it were Tang Jun, senior brother Zhou, or senior brother Lu, I would have another plan." Tan Yunqing said coldly, "You are too conceited, Han Yang. You clearly have a 90% chance of success, but you insist on challenging a method that has a 70, 60, or even 50% chance of success. You must know that luck will not always be with you." Han Yang raised his eyebrows, and his gaze suddenly became sharp, piercing Tan Yunqing's eyes to the point that they hurt slightly. "Tan Yunqing, you still don't understand," he said calmly. "I don't deny that my luck is not bad, but in reality, everything depends on luck. It's just more or less. Just as you said, my luck won't always be this good, so..." Han Yang smiled coldly. If I relied solely on luck, I would have died long ago. Tan Yunqing's eyes narrowed slightly as she stared at Han Yang. Han Yang nodded. Do you understand now? In your opinion, there's only a 50 or 60% chance of success, but in my opinion, there's an 80, 90, or even 100% chance. He chuckled. So, I'll say it again. Since I dared to do this, I'm confident. It's just that in your eyes, it's very dangerous. But in my eyes, it's not like I'm walking on flat ground, but it's just a small risk. The two young men stood face to face, looking straight into each other's eyes. Han Yang smiled, but this smile was completely different from his usual mischievous smile. Instead, it revealed the untamed sharpness hidden deep in his heart. This is the gap between you and me, and also the reason why you can't defeat me. Hearing this, Tan Yunqing's pupils contracted slightly. The average quality of the younger disciples who entered Xianmen Tianzong's third opening ceremony was extremely high. Among them, Tang Jun, Han Yang, and Tan Yunqing were the most outstanding. Among them, Tang Jun's cultivation was at the early stage of the foundation-building realm the moment he entered the sect. His starting point was much higher than that of Han Yang and Tan Yunqing, so he was always in the lead. He had already successfully formed his gold core, and his cultivation speed was even faster than Huang Jinting, Zhuge Wanqiu, and the others who had entered the sect before him. As for the remaining two, whether it was in terms of cultivation speed or in actual combat, Han Yang always won over Tan Yunqing. To Tan Yunqing, who was always strict and calm, he wouldn't be jealous of Han Yang because of this, nor would he deliberately target him. The conflict between him and Han Yang was purely due to the difference in their personalities and ideals. It was also because he didn't see eye to eye with Han Yang that Tan Yunqing was even more strict with himself and trained even harder, hoping to surpass Han Yang. On the other side of his strict and calm side, Tan Yunqing was also a stubborn and strong-willed person. Unfortunately, whether it was an official competition within the sect or a private exchange between the two of them, the winner was always Han Yang. Tan Yunqing looked at Han Yang. Han Yang, you're too conceited and too self-centered. Conceit makes you unable to see yourself clearly, and self-centered makes you unable to see others clearly. Han Yang smiled faintly. So it's you, Tan Yunqing, who can't see yourself clearly and can't see others clearly. You said that you're not a stubborn, cowardly person, and that you're able to make up your mind when you need to take a risky move. I believe these words. But Tan Yunqing, before that, your thoughts and actions toward others and yourself were always to seek perfection, and to pursue everything within your control. Only when you have no other choice would you try to fight for it. However, the affairs of the world change rapidly. How can everything go as you wish? In the process of your relentless pursuit of absolute certainty and stability, many opportunities that you should have been able to grasp, opportunities that you originally had an 80 or 90% chance of succeeding would be wasted by you. When you're certain that you don't have absolute certainty and need to fight for it, you'll often discover that you only have a 70, 60, or even 50% chance of succeeding, or even an even lower chance of succeeding. At that time, you really can only fight for it, and you can only hope that your luck is good. Han Yang chuckled softly. It doesn't matter if others are paving the way for you, or if you're paving the way yourself. You're always used to walking on a path that's already been paved. When you encounter a natural chasm that you can't pave, and you need to leap over it, or when time is so tight that you don't have time to pave the way, what will you do? Tan Yunqing glanced at him from the corner of her eye, and coldly humphed, ice and charcoal don't work together. The arrogant expression on Han Yang's face disappeared, and a playful smile reappeared on his face. I wasn't the one who started the conversation in the first place. Slowly, Tan Yunqing shook her head. Sooner or later, you'll end up playing with fire, Han Yang. Han Yang smiled. Perhaps. Looking at his nonchalant expression, Tan Yunqing shook her head and didn't say anything else. This wasn't the first time she'd seen Han Yang act like this. The three biggest thorns among the second-generation true disciples of Xianmen Tianzong were Eloza, Han Yang, and Huang Jinting. They were the three people who broke the rules of the sect the most. Although Zhou Yunsong wasn't good at getting along with others, he didn't interact with others most of the time, so he didn't have many opportunities to break the sex rules. However, unlike Eloza and Huang Jinting, who were often punished, Han Yang was punished much less. This definitely wasn't because he made fewer mistakes, but because this arrogant and slippery brat was better at exploiting the loopholes in the sex rules. This guy's familiarity with the sex rules was actually no less than Tan Yunqing's, who was strict with others. If it weren't for the fact that the person in charge of the law-enforcing hall was Li Yuanfang, who was more familiar with the sex rules, Han Yang would have been able to escape punishment every time he broke the sex rules. It was also because of his existence that the loopholes in the sex rules were basically closed, causing Han Yang to often laugh at himself. When he offended Li Yuanfang and couldn't avoid it, he behaved like this. His standard attitude was good, but it was hard to say what he was thinking in his heart. When Lin Feng's divine power doppelganger saw this scene, he couldn't help but laugh and shake his head. Sure enough, the same rice breeds different people. The sect was also a small society. Everyone grew up in different environments, had different personalities, and naturally had different views on many things. It was very normal for there to be differences between people. It was completely unrealistic to expect everyone to love each other, unless they were all brainwashed. Therefore, Lin Feng didn't care too much about the internal conflicts between the sect's disciples because of their different personalities and ideals. He only needed to ensure that they were reasonable and restrained, and that they didn't affect the overall unity and prosperity of the sect. Whether it was Lin Feng, Xiao Yan, Zhu, Li Yuanfang, or Luo Qingwu, this was how they taught their disciples. They only guided their disciples to walk on the right path and not deviate. They wouldn't think that all disciples were carved from the same mold. For example, in the dispute between Han Yang and Tan Yunqing, both sides automatically used transcendence energy to transmit their voices. This ensured that Chou Chen and the people of the great Zhou dynasty in the distance wouldn't laugh at them. Even Chu Yang, who was nearby, was fooled. Other than Shenmen Tianzong's own people, no one would know that there was actually so much inside information in their battle with Chou Chen. They would only think that Han Yang, Tan Yunqing, and the others had always had the same plan. Although Han Yang and Tan Yunqing didn't see eye to eye with each other, when Han Yang insisted on attacking Chou Chen according to his own method, Tan Yunqing didn't immediately give up. Instead, she strengthened the 8-gate star-fixing formation and slowed down the movements of the two Chou Chen Yao commanders. Similarly, Han Yang's plan was to use himself as bait. He wouldn't purposely let Chou Chen attack Tan Yunqing so that he could come and take advantage of the situation. According to Lin Feng's knowledge, Han Yang had once saved Tan Yunqing in a dangerous situation when he went out to train. Of course, even so, this didn't stop the two from continuing to see eye to eye with each other. Tan Yunqing would remember Han Yang's assistance, but she also disliked Han Yang's way of doing things. Conversely, Han Yang was the same. But as long as it was controlled within the bounds of healthy competition, Lin Feng, Li Yuanfang, and Luo Qingwu wouldn't interfere too much. In reality, because of Han Yang's existence, Tan Yunqing, who had always strived to do her best in everything, was able to further excavate her potential and shine even more brightly than expected. This was naturally something that Lin Feng and the others were happy to see. Li Yuanfang also disliked Han Yang's way of doing things, but he, who was even calmer than Tan Yunqing, would never deliberately target Han Yang. And when Han Yang broke the rules of the sect, he naturally wouldn't be lenient. Although the unruly Han Yang hated the restrictions of all kinds of rules and regulations, he still trusted Li Yuanfang's decisions because Li Yuanfang was extremely fair. However, the disciples of He Luoju naturally inherited Li Yuanfang's characteristics in their way of thinking, so they didn't really get along with Han Yang. Tan Yunqing was only a representative. When he thought of this, Lin Feng smiled slightly because he thought of the fact that the true disciples of the various residences were gradually starting to form a small mountain. Chapter 929. Just like there were likes and dislikes between people, there would naturally be like-minded people who were close to each other. It was inevitable that a small circle would be formed. A small circle was neither good nor bad. the specific situation had to be analyzed in detail. From the very first opening of the mountain gate, the disciples gathered around Su Yunxing, Li Xingfei, and Lu Xiaofeng. In fact, that was already a relatively preliminary small circle. Later, Lin Feng's direct disciples opened their own caves and accepted second-generation direct disciples. They lived in the same cave residence day and night and learned from the same master. Sometimes, it was easy to destroy the beauty of the cave residence when they were close to each other. They found flaws that the other had not noticed before, but it was also easier to unite and have a common sense of belonging and honor. Apart from that, there would also be people who were close to each cave residence. Most of this was because the leaders of these caves got along well with each other and had a good personal relationship. Therefore, there were more and more disciples in the cave residence. At present, the small mountains in Xianmen Tianzong had gradually begun to divide, but it was still at a very primitive stage. At the same time, it was a harmless stage. On the contrary, just like how Han Yang provoked Tan Yunqing, the small mountains also had a relationship of healthy competition with each other, which promoted the internal prosperity of the sect. Sometimes, a group of harmonious people often meant a pool of stagnant water. Because there was no conflict of interests involved, and the real helmsman of each cave residence, the first-generation disciple, Xiao Yan, and the others, had a harmonious relationship, it seemed to be beneficial and harmless at present. But if there was a conflict of interests involved, the situation might deteriorate, but it was still controllable and stable. In fact, most of the sects and big forces in the world were basically in this state internally. Forming cliques was not scary, but forming cliques for personal interests and even internal strife was terrible. What was even more frightening was that there would be a divergence of opinion on the overall policy, or a dispute over the highest authority. That would be very dangerous. The Void Temple could already be considered a very good situation, and the Reincarnation sect was a standard counterexample. At present, there were two biggest mountains in Xianmen Tianzong, and the other circles were basically more or less around these two mountains. One was Xiao Yan's Fenshan Cliff, and the other was Zhu Yi's Qian Tian Palace. Xiao Yan and Zhu Yi, on the other hand, didn't have any intention of fighting, and their relationship had always been pretty good. But their respective disciples gradually formed the two largest mountains within the sect. In the early days of the heavenly sect of Xianmen, Zhu was the chief instructor of the foundation disciples. At that time, almost all the disciples who entered the sect treated him as a half-teacher. In addition, all the disciples in the Qi refining stage practiced the simplified version of the 8 diagrams of the Great Way of the Heavens and the easy 8 diagrams of the Way of the 8 diagrams compiled by him. Therefore, after the foundation disciples passed the assessment and became true disciples, a considerable number of people chose to worship Zhu in the Heaven Palace. In reality, up until now, even if it's the direct disciples of other caves, if they still haven't reached foundation establishment, the Dao techniques they practice are also the easy Bagua Taoist canon. Xiao Yan and the others also use it to teach their own Qi disciple stage disciples until they reach foundation establishment. Therefore, until now, Zhu Yi's Qian Tian Palace had always been the sect with the most inherited disciples among the 8 caves. There were also many talented disciples in Qian Tian Palace. Before the Kunlun Mountain Dharma Conference, except for Dao Yuding, who had a special situation, Su Yunxing and Ying Lejia had always been known as the top 2 of the second-generation inherited disciples. Other than that, there were also outstanding disciples like Sun Shuai, as well as the rising star Yang Tai, who had risen to prominence after the Kunlun Mountain Dharma Assembly and made everyone raise their eyebrows in surprise, but became the first seat disciple of the Qian Tian Palace. During the Kunlun Mountain Dharma Conference, Qian Tian Palace took 4 of the top 16 places, and Sun Shuai also made it to the top 16. They were really in the limelight for a while. But after the Kunlun Mountain Dharma Conference, the situation gradually changed. First of all, although Zhou Yunsong didn't mean it, he did amaze the world with a single brilliant feat, breaking the previous competition between Su Yunxing and Ying Lejia. Then, when the second-generation inherited disciples began to break through to the Golden Elixir period, Xiao Yan's Fentianya's line caught up. Lin Tong, Tang Jun, and Lu Xiaofeng succeeded in forming their cores, overshadowing Qian Tian Palace, which only had Ing Luozha and Su Yunxing. Especially Lin Tong, although he formed his core later than Ing Luozha, he passed the Yin fire tribulation first and reached the middle stage of the golden elixir, which made Fan Tianya's momentum soar. In addition, Fan Tianya's disciples chose to cultivate the Nanming orthodox method and refine the Nanming Li fire, which was more beneficial for weapon forging and alchemy, which also attracted the younger disciples. After Su Yunxing left the sect and went to the mystic heaven realm, there was no news of him. Ing Luozha was the only one left to support the Qian Tian Palace. Ing Luozha's personality was more eccentric, and the head disciple Yang Tai had not formed his core, which inevitably weakened the Qian Tian Palace. Although they still dominated the number of second-generation inherited disciples, they were less attractive to the third-generation inherited disciples. After the most recent assessment for the promotion of foundation disciples to inherited disciples, the number of people who became Fan Tianya's disciples had already surpassed the number of people who became Qian Tian Palace's disciples. But the Qian Tian Palace's foundation was still there. It was just that before the Kunlun Mountain Dharma Conference, the situation where there were many strong people became the two heroes of Fan Tianya. And in the other caves, He Luoju's line was led by Tan Yunqing, who had a good relationship with Yang Tai and the others of the Qian Tian Palace. Although Tan Yunqing was not on good terms with Ing Luozha, she had a good relationship with Yang Tai. And on the other side, Luo Qingwu's light dance pavilion only had Han Yang, but he had a good relationship with Huang Jinting of the Desolate Sky Valley, Lu Xiaofeng and Tang Jun of Fan Tianya, so he was close to Fan Tianya. The situation of Snow Wind Valley and Desolate Sky Valley was more special. Zhao Huan of Snow Wind Valley, Huang Jinting of Desolate Sky Valley, and Tang Jun and Lu Xiaofeng of Fan Tianya were close friends. They were like-minded and could chat together. And Ku Jing of Snow Wind Valley was best friends with Sun Shuer of the Qian Tian Palace, and they had a good relationship. Zhuge Wanqiu of Desolate Sky Valley was also close to the Qian Tian Palace. Among them, most of the disciples of Snow Wind Valley gathered around Zhao Huan, and although Zhuge Wanqiu was not the first seat disciple of Desolate Sky Valley, she had a great influence on Huang Jinting. Of course, Huang Jinting also had a great influence on her. Other than that, there was Fan Linju's faction. Fan Linju's faction had a large number of disciples, and they had Dao Yuding and Li Xingfei, the two successors of the Golden Elixir period, so their strength was extraordinary, especially Dao Yuding, who had the highest cultivation among the second-generation direct disciples. Dao Yuding and Zhou Yunzong had similar personalities and styles, and they rarely interacted with others, so Fan Linju's faction was led by Li Xingfei. And Li Xingfei had a good relationship with Yang Tai, Tan Yunqing, Lu Xiaofeng and Tang Jun, so Fan Linju's position was more neutral. As for Snow Wind Valley and Desolate Sky Valley, their situations were more special, and they would sometimes lean towards neutrality. The most special person was naturally Zhou Yunzong of Nirvana Cave. Compared to Han Yang, he was truly a lone ranger. Among his peers, the only ones he could talk to were Lu Xiaofeng and Zhao Huan, and he did not interact with the others. The division of the factions within Shenmen Tianzong was actually very simple, and it did not involve conflicts of interest. It was even a little forced to say that it was a fight of personal feelings. At most, it could be said that there were differences in the way they did things, and there were differences in the way they viewed people and things. This also had something to do with their respective masters. Fan Tianya's faction, along with Han Yang, Huang Jinting and the others, were more relaxed. On the other hand, except for Ing Luozha, the successors of Qian Tian Palace and He Luoju were more focused on the system and discipline. Therefore, although the two sides were not clearly divided into factions, they actually did not form opposing emotions. There were also many interactions between them, and many times, they even teased each other. As for helping each other, there were even more. Just like between Han Yang and Tan Yunqing, the two sides were always thinking about how to improve themselves, surpass the other side, and prove that their way of thinking was more correct, and not to undermine each other and dig holes. It was also because of this that Lin Feng, Xiao Yan Zhu Yi, and the others did not really care about this. As long as they did not deviate from the general direction, and no one walked on the wrong path, they would not interfere too much. It was still the same old saying, people have different ways of thinking and different ways of doing things. Forcing people to be the same as ants and bees was an unrealistic way of thinking. Two saw blades, both saw teeth facing outwards, and the flat mouth facing inwards. Combined together, they were facing outwards. This was the best situation. No matter how bad it was, both saw teeth were facing inwards, but they were seamless, crisscrossed, and joined together into one. This was also very good. Both saw teeth were facing inwards, yet they were still opposing each other and clashing with each other. Internal friction was something that Lin Feng, Xiao Yan Zhu Yi, and the others could not tolerate, and they would definitely not let it happen. It was naturally not wrong to nip problems in the bud. From the current situation, the situation was still very good, and healthy competition between each other actually encouraged each other to work hard. This kind of competition was beneficial and harmless, and Lin Feng and his disciple both encouraged it. At the same time, everything was within their control, and they could correct it at any time. This small internal disturbance caused by Han Yang and Tan Yunqing quickly subsided, and it did not cause any waves. Even Chu Yang, who was traveling with them, did not notice any clues, let alone the others. Seeing Xianmen Tianzong's group leave directly, the people of the great Zhou dynasty, from King Liang Fu of Yanliang to the soldiers of the Divine Martial Army, actually all secretly sighed in relief. While Liang Fu and Cloudborn were relieved, they also paid attention to Xianmen Tianzong's group. Although they did not personally see Wang Lin and Shi Tianhao fight at close range, seeing Yang Qing and the others fight already made their hearts sink slightly. Moreover, Han Yang, Huang Jinting, and the other younger disciples also displayed amazing abilities at their current cultivation level, and this made Liang Fu and Cloudborn feel even more bitter. The current Xianmen Tianzong was really on the right track, and its foundation was becoming more solid. Cloudborn's eyes flashed slightly. This is a source magnetic steel mine, and it is completely isolated from the outside world. Although they are strong, this place can be used to their advantage. Liang Fu shook his head and looked at him sternly. Do not underestimate the methods of the master of the Mystic Gate, and do not underestimate his disciples. Let's not talk about whether or not they will succeed. Even if they succeed once the news is leaked, do you hope that the master of the Mystic Gate will let go of his dispute with Golden Cicada and immediately return to the Divine Land to harm the great Zhou dynasty? Everyone needs time to develop. If this continues, perhaps it will be more beneficial to Xianmen Tianzong, and it will allow Xianmen Tianzong to leave the great Zhou dynasty even further behind. However, it is still better than us working for others. Liang Fu said in a low voice, we need an opportunity to reverse the current unfavorable situation. Before that, we can only endure. After a pause, he sighed. The current Xianmen Tianzong has completely surpassed the great Zhou dynasty. It is not a force that we can fight alone. Chapter 930. The dispute between Han Yang and Tan Yunqing only lasted for a short while. On the other side, Zhuge Wanqiu was also looking at Huang Jinting with a slight frown, a helpless expression on her face. Goldie. Huang Jinting grinned. I also feel that junior brother Tan's method is too tepid. Junior brother Han's method is more straightforward. Zhuge Wanqiu held her forehead helplessly. In fact, the moment Han Yang made his move, she had already vaguely guessed what Huang Jinting would do. After all, she had watched Goldie grow up. She understood Goldie even better than her master, Shi Tianhao. Of course, with Goldie's straightforward character, everyone knew what kind of person he was after getting along with him for a long time. Han Yang and Tan Yunqing each had their own plans. Which one was more in line with Goldie's temperament? It was almost needless to ask. Huang Jinting was no longer as hot-headed as he was when he was a child, but some fundamental things would not easily change. It was precisely because she understood this that Zhuge Wanqiu used the Flying Thunder Ruler to help Goldie and Han Yang at the first instance. Huang Jinting saw Zhuge Wanqiu's helpless expression and chuckled. All right, senior sister, I will pay attention next time. Zhuge Wanqiu shook her head in annoyance. Just like Han Yang, Huang Jinting was the standard. He admitted his mistake with a good attitude and did not mend his ways afterwards. "Oh right, senior sister, before we set off, did senior brother Ing Rosa come to find you again?" Huang Jinting suddenly asked. Zhuge Wanqiu nodded calmly. "That's right, he's here to send us off. He's one of the few among our peers who has entered the infinite wasteland. He's here to share some of his experiences with me, and he's left me some special medicines." Huang Jinting snorted lightly and did not say anything else. Zhuge Wanqiu looked at him with amusement and poked his forehead. "You." Huang Jinting did not shrink his head and let her poke his forehead. He muttered, "Senior sister, if you are with Ing Rosa in the future, he has a strong temper and you have a soft temper. You will be easily bullied by him." To him, Zhuge Wanqiu was like a mother and an older sister, and the two of them had a deep relationship. As for Zhuge Wanqiu, Huang Jinting didn't have any romantic feelings. It was purely the kinship of a brother and sister. There was an old saying that every brother-in-law was always on guard against a pervert who had his eyes on their beautiful sister. Huang Jinting was currently in such a situation. He was constantly on high alert, scrutinizing every man who had thoughts about Zhuge Wanqiu. Zhuge Wanqiu looked at him helplessly and shook her head. This was not the first time Goldie had done this. She did not want to talk about it anymore. Unexpectedly, a figure flashed across her mind, causing Zhuge Wanqiu to gently bite her lips. On the other side, Han Yang's laughter could be heard. "Senior sister Zhuge, senior brother Huang, master and martial uncle have led another batch of dust beast into the formation." Zhuge Wanqiu looked over. As expected, she saw Li Yuanfang open the formation and a few more demon commanders and demon general dust beasts charge in. She immediately braced herself and went up to meet them with Han Yang, Huang Jinting and Tan Yunqing. From Li Yuanfang's orderly and precise movements of releasing dust beasts into the formation for Han Yang and the others to practice with, it could be seen that the current situation was firmly in the hands of Xianmen Tianzong and the others. Even though Wang Lin and Shi Tianhao had not moved the entire time, Yang Qing, who opened the path at the very front, was also invincible. Luo Qinggu, who was responsible for bringing up the rear, did not feel any pressure either. Although she was only at the late stage of the Golden Elixir realm, she was still able to handle the dust beasts at the Demon King level with ease. The profound clarity sword was unsheathed, and rays of sword light spread out, becoming even more dazzling in the already dazzling white magnetite steel vein. The 6 directions represented the 4 directions of heaven and earth. Luo Qingwu's innate 6-direction sword way had already cultivated 5 swords, namely the Shaoyin sword of the east, the Taiyin sword of the west, the true Yin sword of the south, the profound Yin sword of the north, and the absolute Yin sword of the Ten Lands. At this moment, Luo Qingwu unsheathed the Taiyin sword of the west and fought against the Demon King Dust. Her Taiyin sword of the west was completely different from the Taiyin sword sect of Mount Shu. The black profound clarity sword accompanied her, turning into rays of pale light in the air. Under the illumination of the magnetite steel vein, it was coated with a faint layer of gold. Wherever the sword light passed, it was like a river of time. Anyone who stepped into it would feel time flow faster. As for Luo Qingwu's own Taiyin sword of the west, the sword light was fast and slow at times. It changed according to her will and was unpredictable. Demon King Dust had a powerful cultivation, but he could not do anything to Luo Qingwu. He wanted to make use of the advantage of the magnetite steel vein to gather the magnetic force to kill Luo Qingwu. However, at this moment, there were rays of emerald light floating around the two of them. They danced non-stop like flames. At the beginning of the battle, Luo Qingwu first used the true Yin sword of the south. The sword light did not dissipate. It was like the true Yin fire of the earth, lasting for a long time. Although it could not completely isolate the magnetic force that Demon King Dust gathered, it had already suppressed the opponent's home ground advantage to the minimum. It was almost negligible. Demon King Dust wanted to break the true Yin sword of the south first, but he could not do so. After the true Yin sword of the south, Luo Qingwu immediately followed up with the Taiyin sword of the west. She attacked directly. The sword light was extremely fast, like water. In the blink of an eye, It had already enveloped Demon King Dust. Demon King Dust wanted to use the power of his Demon King realm to break through the void and retreat. However, he was shocked to find that his speed was so slow that he could not even break through the void when his opponent's sword light had already reached him. Shocked, Demon King Cho Chen's ferocious nature was aroused in the face of Luo Qingwu, who was already very close to him. He didn't dodge, and the third vertical eye between his eyebrows suddenly lit up with an extremely bright white light. In the next instant, an extremely terrifying ray of vital magnetic treasure light shot out and struck toward Luo Qingwu with a momentum that could penetrate the heavens and the earth. It was an attack against an attack. He wanted to force Luo Qingwu to withdraw her sword to defend herself or retreat so that he could win a chance of survival. The powerful magnetic treasure light directly distorted time and space. Although Demon King Cho Chen himself was still slowed down by the sword intent of Luo Qingwu's Western Tai Yin sword, the magnetic treasure light broke free from its shackles and violently passed through the void that was already very close to Luo Qingwu. When he activated the magnetic beam as a Demon King, his strength was much stronger than that of a demon commander or demon general. The magnetic beam twisted and snaked forward. It drew the surrounding space and the magnetic light in the ore vein together. It constantly gathered and spun, like a giant drill. Its target was Luo Qingwu. Luo Qingwu smiled. As the sword light flipped, it was as if it was dancing, graceful and gorgeous. Her sword Dao was not a martial arts technique that involved stabbing and killing, nor was it an ordinary sword control technique. Although she could also perform these techniques, the core of the sword Dao was a mysterious concept of being a companion with the sword and resonating with each other. The pale Western Tai Yin sword's sword light became dazzling as it spun. It transformed into a strange wave of light that sealed Demon King Cho Chen's vital magnetic treasure light. Amidst the waves of light, a dazzling red light suddenly burst out, like a silver bottle bursting out of a broken bottle, or a cavalry charging out. It was extremely dazzling, but it also brought a lingering shadow of death to Demon King Cho Chen's heart. Luo Qingwu's Khanate Six Directions Sword Dao, Shaoyin Sword of the East. A red light flashed across the void. Under Demon King Dust's angry and unwilling gaze, it landed on the third vertical eye in between his eyebrows. After blinding this vertical eye, it pierced through his entire head. The next moment, Luo Qingwu had already sheathed her sword and stood still, leaving Demon King Cho Chen dumbfounded on the spot. His body, which was originally flashing with white light, suddenly cracked like a broken porcelain. Rays of red light emerged from the cracks, and finally he collapsed weakly on the spot. After killing a Demon King Cho Chen, Luo Qingwu looked ahead. In addition to Yang Qing, who was the vanguard, Chu Yang was following behind her. At this moment, not only Luo Qingwu, but Wang Lin, Shi Tianhao, and Li Yuanfang also looked at Chu Yang. Even Yang Qing, who was walking at the front, actually split some of her attention to the black-robed young man beside her. Chu Yang's expression was calm. He followed Yang Qing's footsteps and swept away Cho Chen, who was blocking the way. However, the technique he used at this moment was not the Nine Heavens Divine Sword that he had used before. Han Yang, who was at the foundation establishment stage, could use his fingers as a sword. Chu Yang, who was already at the late stage of the Golden Elixir, naturally could also use the Nine Heavens Divine Sword without a sword. However, at this moment he did not use the Nine Heavens Divine Sword. Instead, he used another technique. Beside him, two blood-red long swords floated and danced in the air to defend against the enemy. They were not real flying swords, but two magic swords condensed from crimson blood. Although under Chu Yang's control, his aura was somewhat restrained, whether it was Wang Lin, Shi Tianhao, Yang Qing, Li Yuanfang, or Luo Qingwu, all of them could clearly recognize that what Chu Yang used to condense the magic swords was the true water of the Blood River. The most filthy true water of the Blood River originated from the tainted blood of the Nether Blood River. It was accustomed to polluting the spiritual qi and spiritual objects of the world. Although Chu Yang's secret technique was quite unique and the disgusting stench of the true water of the Blood River was almost gone, Wang Lin, Shi Tianhao, and the others could still recognize the dermic power fluctuation and its origin at a glance. After all, Lin Feng had previously captured the former King Qingguang of the Nether Hall and seized his Blood River painting Dharma treasure. Xianmen Tianzong had the method to refine the true water of the Blood River and had real true water of the Blood River. Naturally, Wang Lin and the others would not mistake it. However, it was also because of this that Xianmen Tianzong and the others were somewhat interested when they saw Chu Yang condense the magic swords with the true water of the Blood River. After all, it was not an easy task to refine and control the true water of the Blood River. Previously, only the super demon sect of the ancient times, the Blood River sect, could freely refine and control the true water of the Blood River. King Qingguang was a remnant of the Blood River sect, but the inheritance he received was not complete. However, in the inheritance of the Blood River sect, there were people who refined the Nether Blood Lotus, the Boundless Blood Sea, and the Blood God, but they had never heard of anyone refining the Blood River magic swords like Chu Yang's. After all, the number one enemy of the Blood River sect was the Mount Shu sword sect. From the founder of the Blood River sect, Taoist Blood River, all the way down, they did not have a good impression of the sword Tao. Knowing this, Xianmen Tianzong and the others looked at the two Blood River magic swords of Chu Yang with playful expressions on their faces. Chapter 931. Shi Tianhao looked at Chu Yang's two Blood River divine swords with interest as he asked casually, "As far as I know, the Blood River sect doesn't have such a technique, right?" Li Yuanfang said silently, "As far as we know, the Blood River sect was founded by the founder, Taoist Blood River. Back then, the sect's treasures were the Bloodbath Milky Way diagram and a Blood Phoenix. The mystic techniques that the sect cultivates are mainly divided into three branches." Shi Tianhao asked using dermic power, and Li Yuanfang replied using dermic power as well. However, his voice could only be heard by his senior and junior brothers and sisters, but not by Chu Yang and the other junior disciples. First, refine the Netherworld Blood Lotus. Along the way, countless lotuses will bloom, and the sea of blood will overflow, turning into a boundless sea of blood. Eldest senior brother and second senior brother encountered the Blood River Heavenly Lord, who was the embodiment of the Qin dynasty's Shi Xingyun, in the core illusion of the Yingzhou Immortal Mountain, and he was proficient in this technique. Li Yuanfang continued, "Second, refine the Netherworld Blood River and continuously accumulate Blood River true water. This is the simplest and most direct method, but when the Blood River is powerful to a certain extent, it is even more powerful than the boundless sea of blood. The Blood River sect's treasure, the peak Mahayana grade Dharma treasure, the Bloodbath Milky Way diagram, was refined using this method." At that moment, the former King Qingguang of the Underworld Hall, who was on Wang Lin's Shen God Sealing banner, also cultivated according to this method. Third, refine the Blood Shadow. When it is strengthened to a certain extent, the Blood Shadow can advance to become a Blood God. Not only will it be powerful in battle, but it can also split into tens of thousands of clones. As long as the Blood God is not destroyed, the cultivator will not die. At this point, Li Yuanfang paused slightly before continuing. This is also one of the most notorious demonic techniques in the history of the Divine Land. To strengthen the Blood Shadow, one must kill and devour the essence and blood of living beings. Back then, the Blood River sect was hated by all. Other than the fact that the Blood River true water was used to polluting people's spirit chi and spirit treasures, the Blood Shadow and Blood God who cultivated were too vicious. At that time, there were many cultivators in the Blood River sect who not only killed demons for the Blood Shadow and Blood God to devour, but also tortured the human world. The most famous person who cultivated the Blood God's method was undoubtedly the ancestor of the Blood River sect, Taoist Blood River. Of course, the other methods of the Blood River sect basically originated from him as well. However, Taoist Blood River's power of 480 million blood gods had left a deep impression on the heaven primal world. This old man was one of the few powerhouses in the history of the diabolism sects in the vast land of the Divine Land. Back then he was too careless and went to destroy the mountain gate of Mount Shu sword sect. Mount Shu was flooded with blood, but others attacked him from behind. The clones of the blood god that he used as a retreat were also targeted. As a result, 480 million clones of the blood god were killed, and he was seriously injured. However, when Taoist Blood River challenged Shu Mountain alone, he fought against sword ancestor Renchang, the founder of Shu Mountain, who was in charge of the great immortal heavens manifestation sword formation and used the power of the sword peak. That battle still left a strong mark in the history of the Divine Land. At that time, if Ren Changmei did not have the home advantage and fought against Taoist Blood River on another occasion, he might not be a match for him even with the celestial heaven sword in hand. However, Taoist Blood River was too careless and was tricked by others. All 480 million blood gods were killed by Ren Changmei using the celestial heaven sword and the power of the sword peak to activate the celestial heaven sword formation. Taoist Blood River was seriously injured and had to retreat. Ren Chang chased with the celestial heaven sword and the experts of Shu Mountain and finally injured Taoist Blood River himself. However, this old devil was really powerful. Even in this situation he still escaped, stained the celestial heaven sword, and killed many people of Shu Mountain. However, it was also because of the aftereffects of this battle that Taoist Blood River's strength was greatly reduced. Not long after, because his strength had not recovered, he died in another battle. Since Taoist Blood River fell, the Blood River sect gradually declined and finally completely declined. Li Yuanfang said silently, although there are still remnants of the Blood River sect's orthodoxy, they are not complete. However, we cannot rule out the possibility that these remnants of the Blood River sect have figured out a new technique. Wang Lin said indifferently, no. Although the path is completely different, it can be seen that this technique is most likely the result of this fellow Taoist Chu's own creation of the Blood River sect's orthodoxy and the ancient Heavenly Gate's Great Nine Heavens mystical sword. At this point he looked at Chu Yang. Although it is still in the initial stage, it is already quite unique. After all, whether it is the Great Nine Heavens mystical sword or the Blood River demonic mantra, they are both top-notch orthodoxies. It is already rare for him to take this step. Luo Qingwu laughed. He wants to form the third Blood River mystical sword and reach the number of 3 before attempting the Void Thunder Tribulation to form his nascent soul. Shi Tianhao asked, "Little junior sister, how many swords do you think he will obtain if he forms his nascent soul?" Luo Qingwu thought for a moment and answered, "Not 9, but 12. However, I don't think he will use the Blood River mystical sword to form his nascent soul. He will still use the Great Nine Heavens mystical sword as his foundation, so it will most likely be 9. As Chu Yang's cultivation increased, the power of each Blood River mystical sword would also increase correspondingly. This person really hides himself well, but why is he suddenly so generous today? Luo Qingwu said with a smile. Has he finally understood that I will not be greedy for his fortuitous encounter? Shi Tianhao blinked and his lips curled into a smile. Tunton has not reached the age of maturity, but this fellow has. Little junior sister, have you forgotten Master's warning? He looked at Chu Yang and said with a smile, Little junior sister, don't you think he looks like a courting male peacock spreading its tail at you? Luo Qingwu said with a bitter smile, Little senior brother, don't make fun of me. I've grown up and am no longer the type he likes. Yang Qing, who had been leading the way and hadn't interjected since the beginning, as if all her attention was on Cho Chin, suddenly said, Junior martial sister, you need to be more attentive. This fellow Taoist Chu really has the intention of courting you. You've grown up, but I'm afraid his thoughts haven't stopped and are instead becoming more and more intense. Luo Qingwu straightened her expression. I understand what senior brother Yang Qing said. She looked at Chu Yang and shook her head. I don't have any ill feelings towards this Taoist Chu, but I have no intention of becoming Tao companions with him. Yang Qing said calmly, this Taoist Chu came from beyond Heaven Mountain and suddenly obtained a great opportunity. He has to be careful to avoid getting into trouble because of his wealth. This is the righteous path and cannot be blamed. His cultivation and talent are also outstanding. Even if he doesn't enter our sect, he will have great achievements in the future. If he enters our sect, his prospects will be even more limitless and he might even surpass you and me. Logically speaking, his conditions can be said to be extremely outstanding. However, this person's thoughts are quite heavy and I'm afraid it will be difficult for him to be a good match for you, little junior sister. Although you are quick-witted and intelligent, your temperament is still pure. Once a strand of love is tied to your heart, it will naturally be good if he cannot change his original intentions for the rest of his life. Otherwise, it is very likely that you will be hurt by the tribulation of love. Yang Qing's expression was somewhat lonely. This is a personal matter and as a senior brother, I really shouldn't meddle too much in it. That's why I've said this today and I won't mention it again in the future. I'm only saying this in hopes that junior sister will think twice before you act. The person who ultimately makes the decision is still you. Luo Qingwu sternly said, senior brother doesn't need to explain. You're doing this for Xiao Wu's sake. Xiao Wu understands and is very grateful. She really was very grateful. As a direct disciple junior sister, she knew about the regretful matter between Yang Qing and Fang Ting. She also knew that today's matter might provoke Yang Qing's sorrow. Under such circumstances, Yang Qing still had the spirit to care for her. How could Luo Qingwu not understand? Luo Qingwu glanced at Chu Yang's back and said softly, I don't know why, but Xiao Wu feels as if she has some kind of connection with this person. Although this feeling is faint, it truly exists. Only, I don't know what the connection is. But no matter what the connection is, right now Xiao Wu really can't develop feelings for him. In the future, everything will follow her heart. Xiao Wu won't hesitate to move forward, and also won't be blindly impulsive. She suddenly laughed softly. Besides, it's not like Xiao Wu has to marry. Staying on the mountain and always learning from master is very good. Shi Tianhao laughed. Huh, someone's going to be an old lady. Luo Qingwu snorted. Little senior brother wants Xiao Wu to be an old lady. You want to save on the congratulatory gifts for Xiao Wu, right? Shi Tianhao laughed. That's natural. Your senior brother is very poor. Luo Qingwu smiled craftily. Is it because all the good treasures are in little senior brother's stomach? Although they were in the complicated environment of the magnetic steel vein and faced the siege of so many enemies, Xianmen Tianzong's group was still very relaxed. Lin Feng's avatar watched this scene silently and smiled inwardly. He looked at Chu Yang and thought, perhaps he wants to attract Xiao Wu's attention, but based on his past performance, he shouldn't be so shallow. It seems that he also wants to get closer to our sect, so he is showing his sincerity. However, I don't think he wants to join our sect. Instead, he wants to deepen the position of Beyond Heaven Mountain in our sect. After all, if he wants to obtain the corresponding benefits and position, he has to display the corresponding strength. At the very least, he can look forward to his potential. Lin Feng smiled. But even if he doesn't do it on purpose, I'm afraid he still has the intention to seek the phoenix. If a man can arouse a woman's curiosity, especially under a positive impression, it's really not bad to arouse a woman's desire to explore. Constantly showing off one's outstanding side, going deeper, there will always be surprises. While constantly raising people's expectations, he also has the ability to satisfy these expectations. Lin Feng thought rather unscrupulously, unfortunately, the peacock's tail is not fake. It's just that, young man, your male peacock's tail seems to be spreading in the wrong direction. It's facing away from the female peacock you want to attract. The male peacock's tail feathers were magnificent. After spreading its tail, it attracted the female peacock to achieve its goal. From the front, of course it was beautiful, but from the back, it was a bit, hiss. Lin Feng sucked in a breath of cold air and stopped himself from thinking further. Chapter 932. Although Shi Tianhao and the others were teasing Luo Qingwu, but just like Lin Feng, according to their understanding of Chu Yang in the past, they all knew that Chu Yang would not be so bored as to do something like a peacock spreading its tail. Perhaps he had this intention subconsciously, but from Chu Yang's point of view, his original intention was to further express his sincerity. Before the battle of exterminating Xian, during the incident at Beyond Heaven Mountain, although Li Baitao and the rest conspired against Xu Shan, Wu Yunliang, Meng Chaoran and Chu Yang all stood on the right side. After that, in order to avoid Xu Shan's revenge, they even abandoned their ancestral foundation at Beyond Heaven Mountain and followed Xiao Yan, Li Yuanfang and the rest back to Yujing Mountain. Lin Feng and his disciples would naturally not treat the people of Mount Shu unfairly. After the battle of destroying Xian Mountain, Lin Feng's sword suppressed Mount Shu. The power of Mount Shu's sword sect shrank like never before. They were trapped in a corner of West Shu and directly sealed the mountain. After the safety of Mount Shu, after an internal discussion, Wu Yunliang and others decided to return to the original mountain gate. After this battle, unless Xu Shan could once again suppress the Xian Men Heavenly Sect, they would most likely not cause trouble for Beyond Heaven Mountain because it was meaningless. Instead, it would make their actions laughable, and it would even lead to bad consequences. However, in order to prevent people from Mount Shu from acting irrationally out of desperation, Wu Yunliang still arranged for some people to open another mansion in the northern foothills of Kunlun Mountain as a foolproof plan. In this regard, Xianmen Tianzong opened the door wide. At the same time, there were many rewards and compensation in various aspects of resources. But whether it was Wu Yunliang, Meng Chaoran, or Chu Yang, they all clearly understood that this round of harvest could not be effective forever. The celestial sect of the celestial sect of wonders would naturally not do such a stingy thing. However, if their own family did not improve, then they would naturally be marginalized. After the Battle of Mount Shu, not only the original Purple Cloud Path, Northern Militant Royal Court, Celerita's Swordsmanship Sect, Thunderbolt Sword Sect, and Wilderness Sword Sect, but other big and small sects would gradually move closer to Xianmen Tianzong. There were limited spots at the top of the mountain, and the spots halfway up the mountain were equally popular. If one did not live up to expectations, they would only be squeezed out by others. Xianmen Tianzong cherished old friendships and pushed the mud up the wall. However, if the mud was always mud, it would fall back down one day. After all, forging iron depended on one's own strength. After getting rid of Li Baitao's group, Chu Yang finally revealed some of his cultivation secrets to his master Meng Chaoran and sect master Wu Yunliang. While the two of them were shocked, they eagerly absorbed the nourishment and began to diligently cultivate. However, at the moment, it was only limited to Wu Yunliang and Meng Chaoran. Slowly planning for further development was needed. Moreover, it was only a part of the secret. There were many things that Chu Yang still buried in his heart, especially the future that seemed like a dream, but also like a reality. This matter would forever rot in his heart. On the other hand, on Xianmen Tianzong's side, Chu Yang revealed more things. Just as Lin Feng and the others thought, in order to fight for better conditions, he had to reveal the corresponding strength. At the very least, it had to be worth looking forward to. In the battle against the Nine Serenities Ghost Monkey, Chu Yang had already revealed the Great Nine Heavens Heavenly Sword. Therefore, this time, after entering the magnetic steel mine, Chu Yang revealed another of his trump cards, the two Blood River Heavenly Swords that he had comprehended and refined. Through observation, Chu Yang had long determined that, unlike others, even if he revealed the Great Nine Heavens Heavenly Sword and the Blood River Heavenly Method, Lin Feng and his disciples would not covet them. At most, they would be a little curious and interested. Moreover, Lin Feng and the others would not leak this matter, so Chu Yang had nothing to hide. Even though he was a calm and meticulous person, Chu Yang's heart was also filled with passion and vigor. He also yearned to wield his sword and sing with joy. Of course, he did not deny that in the depths of his heart, when Luo Qingwu was in front of him, he could not control his state of mind. What a pity, young man. With a change of environment and experience, you might really be able to win over this little disciple of mine. Lin Feng looked at Chu Yang and laughed inwardly. A true son of heaven? With a shake of his body and a release of his domineering aura, the girl would probably faint from the suffocation. Why would he need to make himself look like a bullied wife, walking with great caution and difficulty? Lin Feng laughed unscrupulously in his heart. But I have a total of 4 people like you here, and they all have all kinds of styles. There's a man with unrivaled heroism and righteousness that reaches the clouds. There's a gentleman who is well-read but not pedantic, modest and courteous while at the same time bursting with heroism. There's a cool, elegant, noble, demonic, wild, cool, handsome and domineering Su. There's also a childhood friend who can always play with, laugh with, and get into trouble with. Lin Feng repeatedly shook his head. This is the environment my Xiao Wu grew up in. She grew up surrounded by 4 times the domineering aura. Breathing in the domineering aura is like breathing air. If she could easily faint from the suffocation, then I would have peace of mind even if I gave her a dowry. Tisk, girls really need to be raised well. Thinking of this, Lin Feng sighed. The ancients really didn't deceive me. While Lin Feng was letting his imagination run wild, Wang Lin, Shi Tianhao, Chu Yang and the others had already gone down, breaking through the Chouchen clan's obstruction and entering the cave at the center of the mine. Inside was a tunnel that led deeper into the vein. Going down through the tunnel, they could clearly feel the magnetic force getting stronger and stronger. At this moment, for Chu Yang, Yang Qing, Li Yuanfang, Luo Qingwu and the others, the opponent they had to pay attention to first was not the Chouchen clan, but the almost tangible magnetic force. Without the Chouchen clan's guidance, the magnetic force in the surrounding space had already gradually condensed into a fluctuating magnetic light. Shi Tianhao's expression didn't change, his relaxed smile still on his face. However, his primitive and vast desolate aura had already spread out, helping his fellow disciples who hadn't reached the primordial spirit stage to block the magnetic light. The Chouchen beasts had already been killed in large numbers, and the remaining were gradually retreating. Facing Xianmen Tianzong's group now, they had already lost the courage to stop them. What do we do? Looking at the direction, they're heading straight for the marrow. On the other side of the vein, a majestic Chouchen demon king looked at an old Chouchen beast beside him. Slowly, the old Chouchen shook his head. Since the formation is useless against them, we can't stop them. Our children will only die in vain if they go. Young Chouchen said anxiously. The first group only had their eyes on the magnetic steel ore. Now, this group is going straight for the marrow. What should we do? Old Chouchen said, we should focus on the first group. We can only let the second group go. Just now, I sensed through the formation that another expert has entered. This time, it's not the human race, but the demon race experts. Maybe they're here for these people. I understand. Then let the children retreat first, young Chouchen said quietly. That young Chouchen said silently. Suddenly, he came to a realization. Do you think they're also here for the mysterious space beneath the marrow? Old Chouchen nodded. You're right. This second group is completely different from the first group. I'm afraid that's the case. Young Chouchen suddenly chuckled. That's great. After that great sage entered the mysterious space, he hasn't come out yet. This second group of humans is very strong. Especially those 2 youths who don't fight much, I can't see through them. They're terrifying. Old Chouchen said, but if the demon experts that enter later are indeed here for them, then it's enough to take care of them. Young Chouchen said hatefully, they've killed so many of our children. We must bury them in this vein. Old Chouchen frowned. They're close to the marrow. It's not convenient for the formation to detect their movements. Wang Lin, Shi Tianhao, and the others went down to the deepest part of the vein and officially stepped into the marrow. The white magnetic light in front of them disappeared and was replaced by darkness. It was as if they were in a black tunnel. But the disappearance of the white magnetic light did not mean that the magnetic force had weakened. On the contrary, the magnetic force was unprecedentedly strong. Even Wang Lin and Shi Tianhao could not transmit their consciousness out in this environment. They could only see with their eyes, hear with their ears, and use their 5 senses to interact with the outside world. Yang Qing and the others had to be under the protection of Shi Tianhao's mana to move normally. Otherwise, such a strong magnetic force would not only isolate their consciousness, but also hurt their bodies. Wang Lin looked at the black tunnel and said calmly, it's not a solid tunnel. Although the walls and ground exist, there's actually a large amount of powder floating in the air. They're pulled by the extremely strong magnetic force, forming an illusory scene that looks like a solid. If one wanted to dig out the marrow from here, one would have to dig out a lot of fluffy powder. Only after leaving this environment where the magnetic force was dense would the fluffy powder gather together due to its own magnetic force and compress into a real solid with a very small volume. Digging out a piece of marrow that looked like the size of a house might not even be as big as a fist when brought out. Shi Tianhao nodded. That's right. This magnetic steel vein is even bigger than the one in our mystic realm. The magnetic force in the marrow is also stronger. However, it feels like an arrow at the end of its flight. It's strong but lacks stamina, showing signs of weakening. Wang Lin looked up and down. In a situation where there's no excessive mining and destruction, this vein's natural regeneration should be very strong. There's probably another reason why it's showing signs of weakening. The opportunity that Master spoke of might be here. Shi Tianhao chuckled. We'll slowly look for it later. Right now, let's welcome the bug behind us first. After getting far away from the great Zhou dynasty's people, the compass in their hands began to work again, pointing behind them. But now, the needle of the compass gradually stabilized, indicating that someone was getting closer and closer. Whether it was the person who had entered the vein behind them or the people of the great Zhou dynasty, Wang Lin and Shi Tianhao naturally wouldn't let the other party cause trouble. Shi Tianhao looked around and felt the terrifying magnetic force. He said with a smile, "This place is actually not bad." As he spoke, his magic treasure, the purple crown of ascension, appeared. With a flash of purple lightning, it immediately resonated with the magnetic force in the surroundings. In almost an instant, the nearby magnetic steel vein was drowned in a sea of purple lightning. Chapter 933. Shi Tianhao activated the purple crown of ascension, and the lightning-type spirit power contained in it immediately merged with the rich magnetic force in the essence magnetic steel vein, producing a terrifying resonance. Duo! Shi Tianhao bellowed, and a thick pillar of air that seemed to be clear yet turbid shot out from the top of his body. After wrapping around his body, it directly turned into a huge primordial Tai Chi diagram. In the Tai Chi diagram, there were countless giant beasts floating up and down, and an ancient primordial aura emanated. The purple crown of ascension merged with Shi Tianhao's essence soul incarnation, and rolling lightning flashed continuously, triggering a massive amount of magnetic force in the essence magnetic steel vein. It was even more terrifying. One after another, array patterns and talismans constructed by lightning appeared on the Tai Chi diagram, and gradually intertwined to form an extremely terrifying giant array. This was a powerful array formation that Shi Tianhao had gradually figured out under Lin Feng's guidance after he had attained his essence soul Dao. It was called the Nine Heavens Divine Thunder Array, and it was extremely ferocious and destructive. The core of its power was the Nine Heavens Divine Thunder, which was the same as the Purple Firmament Dao Guardian Array, the Nine Heavens Divine Thunder Emperor Capital Array. Although its foundation was not as thick as the Purple Firmament Peak Array, which had been accumulated over a long period of time, its power was already on the right track. In particular, Shi Tianhao's divine powers and dermic powers were astonishing, far beyond that of ordinary essence soul incarnation cultivators. Under his activation, the power of the array formation was even more tyrannical. Usually, it would trigger the natural heavenly thunder in the outside world, but now, it was triggering the magnetic force in the essence magnetic steel vein. The array formation had not been officially activated, but its power was already more terrifying than the array formation that the Chouchen clan had activated previously. During his days in Tianhuang Vastland, Shi Tianhao would also use his free time to figure out this array formation divine power. Swap the 284th formation pattern with the 285th formation pattern. The 1769th formation pattern is wrong and needs to be corrected. Li Yuanfang looked at the 9th Heaven Thunder formation that Shi Tianhao had set up carefully and meticulously. Shi Tianhao adopted all of these suggestions. Even though he had proven his primordial spirit, he was still slightly inferior to Li Yuanfang in terms of array formations. Previously, Before setting up the array formation, he had specially communicated with Li Yuanfang to listen to Li Yuanfang's opinions so that the power of the array formation could be stronger. Li Yuanfang frowned slightly. The 3027th formation pattern. It was rare for him to be stuck, but it wasn't because there was an obstacle. It was because time was of the essence and he didn't have enough time to verify his calculations. This formation pattern did not seem to be wrong to Li Yuanfang, but he had some ideas that it might be possible to make the array formation stronger after adjusting the formation pattern. However, this needed to be verified. Li Yuanfang had never come to a conclusion about things that had not been verified. Hence, after a slight pause, he continued, keep the 3027th formation pattern as it is for now. You can use the Yang retreat technique for the 3988th formation pattern, the effect will be better. While communicating with Shi Tianhao, Li Yuanfang also set up an array diagram. Invisible and formless astral winds appeared one after another, twisting the limited space in the mineral vein into pieces. It was the fierce and indestructible Nine Heavens formless astral wind. The array diagram that Li Yuanfang set up was the Nine Heavens formless astral wind array diagram that Lin Feng had obtained after destroying the Wind God sect in the past. The array diagram was damaged at that time. After a short repair by Lin Feng, although its power was not as good as before, it could still be used. Shi Tianhao and others had used it when they first went to the Kuanping hidden treasure. Later, Lin Feng completely repaired the array diagram. After continuous analysis and deduction by him and Li Yuanfang, it was even more powerful than when it was at its peak in the past. In retrospect, the Wind God sect in the past made Lin Feng think that the Nine Heavens formless wind array diagram was the most valuable thing, besides the Tianhou golden bead. It was even rarer and more precious than the primordial spirit practitioner and the Tianfeng treasure fan. It was a very good array formation. Although it was not as good as the top formations such as the Yin and Yang life and death formation, the Vairocana formation, and the Nine Luminaries sky-shattering formation, its power was also extremely outstanding. It was also one of the rare mountain-protecting formations that could move. Its geographical conditions, or the source of power, was the astral wind layer above the sky. At this moment, Li Yuanfang's hands kept changing the incantation. The Nine Heavens formless wind array directly communicated with the astral wind layer above the ninth heaven, which was densely covered with the most primitive Nine Heavens formless wind, which could split the sky and the earth and destroy everything. At this moment, Li Yuanfang's cultivation was still low. Although his attainments in formations were high, there was still a limit to the power to activate such a formation. Therefore, at this moment, he was assisting Shi Tianhao. Step by step, he handed over the control of the Nine Heavens formless wind array to Shi Tianhao. He communicated with Shi Tianhao and asked Shi Tianhao to activate the Nine Heavens thunder formation and the Nine Heavens formless wind array at the same time. Above the primordial Tai Chi diagram transformed by Shi Tianhao's primordial spirit, at this moment, the astral wind and the thunderbolts were constantly colliding, turning into an even more terrifying death zone. The mutual generation of wind and thunder was originally Shi Tianhao's unique skill. At this moment, with the help of Li Yuanfang, he activated it with the power of the formation and obtained an even more terrifying power of wind and thunder. Among the various magic skills of Shi Tianhao, the infinite wind and thunder technique was the first magic skill he comprehended after practicing the Tao Te Ching of heaven taught by Lin Feng. Nowadays, it was rarely used, but it was not because the power of this magic skill was insufficient. On the contrary, the wind and thunder surged, constantly transforming each other, and the increase of power was almost infinite. The key to limiting its power was actually Shi Tianhao's own endurance. Today, when Shi Tianhao had proved his primordial spirit, the limit of the infinite wind and thunder power that he could bear was extremely terrifying. In theory, as long as he was given enough time to prepare, this was his most powerful magic skill in terms of the scale of power. However, the problem was here. At this point, the battle of the primordial spirit level was ever-changing, and in the blink of an eye, it could be thousands of rounds of confrontation. Therefore, Shi Tianhao needed time to prepare the infinite wind and thunder technique, so he gradually used it less. However, today he was here to specially set up a trap, so this problem did not exist. Therefore, Shi Tianhao decisively used this powerful trump card again. Not only did he use the infinite wind and thunder technique again, but with the help of Li Yuanfang, he activated the 9 heavens thunder formation and the 9 heavens strong wind formation together, thus obtaining an even more powerful power of wind and thunder, even exceeding the current personal limit of Shi Tianhao. Shi Tianhao and Li Yuanfang were busy at the side, and Wang Lin was not idle either. He directly took off his human form and revealed the primordial spirit incarnation of the Netherworld Tai Chi diagram. Above the Netherworld Tai Chi diagram, a demonic gate suddenly opened. The world inside was empty, and there was only a dot of light. Then, a line extended from the dot of light, and stopped at another dot of light. Then, a line continued to extend from this dot of light, and stopped at the next dot of light, and so on and so forth. In the next moment, the demon gate closed, and the karma line that extended all the way suddenly reversed. The last technique of Wang Lin's 4 symbols realm technique, the karma realm. At the same time that he used the karma realm, Wang Lin also took out the mysterious sky ceiling flag. A black-robed Dharma treasure, the primordial spirit Feng Tianjun, appeared. After communicating with Wang Lin, Feng Tianjun patted the flagpole, and light flashed on the flag, and a person descended. However, it was not the strongest person on the mysterious sky ceiling flag, the former hall master of the underworld hall, Su Anda. Instead, it was the weakest of the 3 Dao integration experts on the flag, the sect master of the human Dao of the reincarnation sect, Zhang Enrui. Zhang Enrui sighed and followed Feng Tianjuan's instructions. He closed his eyes, opened his mouth, and exhaled a breath that reeked of alcohol. This alcohol was not pungent, nor did it have any special smell, but it could make people fall into a state of unconsciousness. Naturally, it had no effect on Dao integration experts or great demons of the unification of the stars and souls. However, this alcohol engulfed the space where Shi Tianhao was, causing his opponents to involuntarily ignore Shi Tianhao, who was accumulating power and waiting there. Although they were in the pith region of the vital magnetic steel mine, and even a Dao integration expert's divine sense couldn't be used to detect them, Shi Tianhao's infinite wind thunder technique, which was activated by the 2 spell formations, was simply too powerful. Furthermore, it was clearly hostile. Liang Fu, riding Cloud Immortal, and the other cultivators of the Great Zhou dynasty would not be able to detect them. However, if it was a great demon from before, there might be a risk of being detected. At the level of the Uao Dragon King and the Ancestral Crocodile Great Sage, even in an environment like the Spirit Steel Mine, their spiritual senses were still extremely sharp. It was hard to tell from afar, but when it was close, they would be very sensitive to danger. Therefore, Wang Lin first used his karma realm to help Shi Tianhao conceal his opponent's sudden inspiration, and then let Zhang Enrui conceal himself further. In other places, this method might not have worked. After all, a powerhouse's soul could not sense danger, but they could still sense danger when they spread out their divine sense. But in this Yuan magnetic steel pith area, Wang Lin's move was enough to take his life. Uao Dragon King and the Ancestral Crocodile Great Sage swaggered into the pith of the mine. Even with their divine powers, they could no longer determine the exact whereabouts of Wang Lin, Shi Tianhao, and the others. They only knew that they had disappeared in the direction of the pith of the mine. However, the 2 great demons still maintained a minimum level of caution. Xianmen Tianzong and the others were now famous. Who knew if they had any special techniques up their sleeves? At the very least, Uao Dragon King, who had studied Buddhism with Golden Cicada, knew that Buddhism cultivated the great Tao of karma. By understanding and severing karma, one could deceive the senses of others. Golden Cicada had lived such a carefree life all these years, so carefree that many people and demons did not even know of his existence. Apart from his powerful divine powers, one of the most important reasons was that he cultivated Buddhism to deceive karma. Of course, Buddhism's sudden inspiration concealment of karma was not omnipotent. It depended on the cultivator's own realm, divine powers, dharmic powers, and the strength of the opponent's divine powers, as well as the strength of their spiritual senses. At the same time, if the opponent had something to use against them, rather than an illusory clue, the effect of the concealment would naturally be greatly reduced. However, in a situation where they were almost blind, Uao Dragon King and the ancestral crocodile Great Sage could not sense the danger that was so close at hand. It was like two blind men without a guide dog, without even a walking stick. No matter how careful they were, they would not be able to detect the traps that had already been laid beneath their feet. They could only wait until they actually stepped on it before they could react. As for whether they could make it in time, that was another question altogether. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.